The heat of the flames, the rhythmic knock of the hammer on metal, and the heavy aroma of molten ore, all of this created a feeling of home familiar from childhood. Both his father, mother, and himself loved this forge. It was not just a place of work for them, but the heart of the family. They lived in the kingdom of Dent Corn, and the capital of this land was a city called Harvester. Various creatures lived in the city, and on its outskirts stood a simple but warm house. Noah came to his father with news. The blacksmith's guild had ordered 5 one-handed steel swords, but instead of praising him, he saw the mess and told his father that it wouldn't hurt to clean up a bit. His name was Noah, and his father reminded him, "You should stay away from the guild. Don't take their orders." He asked how his son was even going to forge blades in such a mess and dust. In fact, my father hadn't done anything for a long time. 2 months ago, after working for Uncle Jera, he got drunk again. Now he was just lying on the floor, muttering something without even opening his eyes. Nella, their cat, came up to him. The floor was cold and she wanted warmth. Once upon a time, my father was a legendary blacksmith, nicknamed the God Blacksmith. But that was 8 years ago, before Noah's mother died. He truly had an incredible talent for blacksmithing, but outside the forge he knew nothing, neither in trade nor in life. After his mother's death, everything went awry. When purchasing materials, he did not distinguish between good and bad, and bought ore at an inflated price. Moreover, all their supplies were fraudulently bought for pennies. Disappointed, he plunged into drunkenness. When Noah turned 8, he began earning money to buy food and alcohol for his father by working as a domestic helper. If he had followed his father's path and become a blacksmith, things might have turned out differently. But his father explained everything so poorly that Noah couldn't even begin to learn blacksmithing. And now he wanders the forest alone in search of useful materials. He leans down to the ground. Something glitters among the roots. It looks good, he thinks. His drunken father forced him to collect ore and other materials, a cruel task for a child. Suddenly, the forest was filled with wild growls. Noah turned sharply at the sound, his heart starting to pound wildly. Before him stood a huge horned creature with shining eyes and a predatory gaze. To the north of the capital stretched a vast and harsh wasteland. Nearby was Dragon's Ridge, a place that made even hunters tremble. And then there's the Forest of Beasts, teeming with monsters, and several other equally dangerous places. Noah dropped the material he had found out of fear. His hands were shaking. It was truly full of monsters that killed without hesitation. But that's precisely why valuable materials could be found here, abandoned by those fleeing these lands. Thanks to this, Noah learned to run fast, although he had no skills in either magic or combat. But he became more and more skilled at collecting ore and thought he could live like this for a long time. Now the young blacksmith's apprentice is 14 years old. Over time, my father slowly woke up from his next alcoholic sleep. A familiar clanking of metal was heard from the forge. Someone was working. When he woke up, he saw Noah was forging a sickle, carefully shaping the blade. He explained that it was an order from Aunt Tarot. Someone had to collect the rice they had for breakfast. Father only mumbled something indifferently in response. Then Noah cautiously asked if he could at least occasionally watch him and correct his mistakes. Father finally showed interest and asked what materials he was forging. For the sickle, Noah used adamantite on magma stone, added fire dragon scales, and griffin feathers, an incredible set for an ordinary tool. But suddenly his father abruptly stopped his movement. Something inside him clicked. Noah asked warily if he had done something wrong. He simply thought that based on magma stone, the sickle would be perfect for melting grass. But his father was stunned. Such rare and powerful materials, and all this for the sake of a simple sickle. Grabbing his son by the shoulder, he demanded where he had gotten all this. Noah calmly replied that everything was as usual. He had gathered a group of small fire dragons near the dragon's crest. These words made my father recoil sharply, as if he had been struck in the chest. Without another word, he rushed into his room and ran to the table. He reached for a small nut lying nearby. It was a magic nut for emergencies. It summoned the wife's former teammates. Clutching it, he began the challenge. Holy Knight Omor, Hero Gerald, Heavy Swordsman Messi, Great Sage Lulu, and Master Thief Lalu. In an instant, a fog appeared, and members of Noah's mother's former team emerged from it. The horned man asked with a stern look what happened. It was Jair. Noah was delighted to recognize him after a long separation. Two women, older but cheerful, congratulated him, amazed at how much he had grown. It was Lulu and Lala. They looked almost the same as before. Matt stood silently nearby, calm as always. Nomad apologized to Lulu for the urgent call and asked her to look into her magic glasses to check Noah's level. Everyone leaned towards him, waiting for an explanation. He said that Noah had collected adamantite, magma stone, and dragon scales on his own just to forge a sickle for his neighbor. Lulu instantly took out her glasses and began scanning the guy. And suddenly she laughed. She couldn't help but be surprised. She announced, "Noah's level is 596. Everyone froze in shock, thinking that Lulu must have gone crazy. They asked if the glasses were even working and if Noah was just messing around with the Nomad's materials. But he wouldn't waste an extraordinary amount of money for a joke. Noah didn't understand why everyone was so nervous about his level. After all, he thought that the years spent collecting ore and materials were worthless, and his level was too low for his age. He timidly tugged at his father's sleeve and asked if everything was really that serious. The Nomad nodded toward Gerald and said, "Here before you is a former great hero, and his level is only 249. He hadn't grown much since they broke up, even though Lulu had asked him not to neglect his training. The others gained another 20 levels, but he never became the great dog, the title of Hero King." Noah looked around in surprise. Uncle Jair was a king? Yes, he was Gerald II, the 107th king of the kingdom of Dent Corn, but even he was only level 249. Nomad himself was a little over 80, though not a fighter. For comparison, a novice would be level 10, and a veteran would be level 60 at most. But Noah has already reached 596. He looked at his father in surprise and asked how this was possible. But of course, he had no answer. Finally, Matt spoke up. He asked Nomad to calm down and turned to Noah. Did he have any idea why he had grown so big? The guy shrugged and said that all this time he had just been collecting ore and materials for the forge because he didn't have the money to buy them. Hearing this, Lala cast a penetrating and rather reproachful look at Nomad. Lala looked sternly at Nomad. She had sent the materials in advance, so why was Noah running after the ore himself? Noah replied that everything was fine. His father did receive money, but he spent it immediately on alcohol and treats for his drinking buddies. Lala was angry because it was difficult for the boy to obtain all these resources, but Noah just smiled. Despite everything, he sincerely loved his father. No matter how you look at it, there was so much of his mother in him, not just in appearance, but in his heart. Lala was silent for a moment and then decided to ask one important question. She pointed to the strange creature on Noah's shoulder and asked if it was really what she was thinking. Gerald stood up abruptly. According to Article 147 of the Kingdom's Law, demons are prohibited in the capital without a tamer's license, and Noah, apparently, did not have such a license. So he decided the creature must be destroyed immediately. The sword flashed in his hand. The Nomad instantly tensed up. Gerald looked as if he was really ready to cut off the guy's head. The hero solemnly promised he would not shoot Noah in the neck. And suddenly he made a sharp lunge straight towards him. But Noah reacted with lightning speed. He dodged like a seasoned warrior. Gerald was shocked. He hadn't expected this from a teenager. The next moment, he himself was forcefully thrown into the ground. Even with his hardened nervous system, Gerald fainted. Lulu turned to Noah. Did he have any free skill points left? Noah said he spent it all on blacksmithing yesterday, but he checked and there was a little left. If there are enough of them, he can apply for a tamer's license right now while Gerald is unconscious. It's simple. If the device confirms that he has the taming skill, then he will be able to register as an adventurer. And by joining the guild, he will be able to officially work as a blacksmith in its ranks. The nomad just shook his head, and Noah quickly offered to get rid of the animal, if necessary. But then he added, "He's not that bad. He has feelings too." Matt suddenly asked, "Is this really the monster Kigir Mog?" As expected, he recognized him at first sight, a legendary sense of smell. Chigura Mogura is an extremely rare monster from the Endless Wasteland. It has no strength or defense, but it grants the team a 5-fold increase in experience. Noah had no idea about it, but that's why everyone dreams of having such a beast on the team. Lala asked why he was still without her. Noah said he had found the beast 5 years ago. It was small and like a loose pebble back then, so the boy shared his lunch with it. From that moment on, Chigura Magura became attached to him, a constant companion. It turns out that Noah always took the black morph with him and gained more experience. And here everyone was surprised again. Noah had already come up with a name for it, but he noticed that even with this bonus, leveling up after this level was slow, 1 level per month. Hearing this, he asked to wait a bit. He needed to check something. It would take about 2 hours. He was going to meet his friends. Armed with his sword, his backpack, and the rest of his equipment, he was ready to set out. Matt did the math and realized something didn't add up, and it was serious. Hunting every day, he would have reached a maximum level of 100 in 5 years. Even with the bonus, level 596 at 14 seemed unrealistic. They decided to follow him and ordered Noah to act as usual, not to change anything. Noah didn't object and calmly began preparing to leave. And suddenly, he flew forward rapidly, right on his own 2 feet, as if accelerated by the wind. Barely having time to react, Lulu began to create a magic carpet. The chase began. Noah covered the distance in a matter of seconds, racing across the plains, outrunning even wild animals. A voice came from behind, asking him to slow down a little. It was the whole company, and Nomad even felt sick from the speed. Their running was too fast, even with the demonic creatures in their path. But Noah simply walked past them, not engaging in battle, even though he had a demon assistant worthy of a team of experienced adventurers. Having avoided a fight, he felt more confident. If a monster has a body, it's ready to fight, but today he was smiling. He needed to get to a familiar place quickly. A friend named St. was waiting for him there. He reported that they were almost at the Dragon Kingdom, but he was asked if they had run past their friends. Noah assured him that there was only a little left. He knew this road better than the back of his hand. Black Morph had strengthened everyone, but fatigue was already showing, and he joked, "And if I get tired, what then?" Lulu replied, "Don't worry. Even without reinforcements, they had magic. If he attacked someone, they would just watch, and if there was a threat, they would intervene." Lala asked, "Will help not come right away?" But Lulu just smiled. "Everything is under control." They want to see what Noah usually does. She was curious. What was this guy's secret? The nomad came to his senses. He was informed that they were now on Dragon's Crest. He immediately panicked. What were they doing in such a dangerous place? But they told him that they were just following Noah while he was moving. He asked where his son was. Lulu pointed ahead. There, in the distance, Noah stood opposite a huge griffin. Nomad screamed, demanding that Lulu, Lala, and Matt save the boy. He was sure he would die, but he was told to calm down. Even screaming wouldn't help. If Noah wins, it's his battle. The griffin raised its paw, preparing to strike. But Noah counterattacked instantly, with precision and grace. And the griffin's paw fell to the ground. The defeat was clear. It was high-quality raw material, but most importantly, he didn't get a single scratch. Usually, a demon can kill you instantly with the first blow. Wounded monsters become aggressive and chase the enemy. They shouted at him, "Run!" But he just smiled, waved his hand, and thanked the griffin. He silently turned around and walked away. This has happened every time since Nomad fell into drunkenness. Most demons ignore Noah as if that's how it should be. Even when attacked, he always only takes materials. He doesn't kill and doesn't let himself be killed. That's his philosophy. His father didn't understand. How was this even possible? Eventually, their entire group reached a gloomy cave. Father asked if they had arrived yet. Noah replied, "Almost. It's just the entrance, and inside lives Esty." And here's the strange thing. Noah's level always increases after meetings with Esty. Everyone is curious. Who is this sage who lives in Dragon's Crest? Lulu, the great wise one, confessed she would never settle in such a wild place. And Lala, the great thief, agreed. She didn't understand it either. They continued their journey deeper into the cave, moving cautiously forward. The temperature was rising, breathing was getting harder. Lulu felt something sinister in the air. Finally, approaching the narrow passage, Noah said, "We're there." A huge hall with ruins opened up before them, like an ancient underground city. Noah thought she would probably be angry because he had brought strangers without permission. Suddenly, a large paw hit the ground, and the creature loudly introduced itself. Estee, or rather, Estee Lauder. She is the queen of the fire dragons. The entire group froze in amazement when they saw a real fire dragon in front of them. This was truly SD Gelderhead the Higher, not just a beast, but a legend. Lala instantly began casting a battle spell, but Esti responded with lightning speed, attacking first. A huge stream of fire engulfed everything around. Everything that fell into the flames melted into boiling magma. Noah barely managed to dodge and landed on a nearby rock. The encounter was not very friendly. Fortunately, Lulu managed to activate the barrier, which saved everyone. She couldn't believe that the Dragon Queen was Noah's friend. And Nomad, turning to her, said, "Noah is under the barrier." She was asked to remove her protection, otherwise someone might get hurt. But Lulu clearly understood. If the barrier were removed, everyone would die. Meanwhile, Noah pulled the sword out of the cloth in which it was wrapped. She had no right to remove the protection. That would mean death for everyone. Once when she was still young, she met the Queen of Fire Dragons. And then, without even trying to fight, she just ran away as fast as she could. Lala wasn't around then, and she didn't know Matt, so no one knew about that fear. She remembered how terribly afraid she had been then. Then she was neither a sage nor a heroine, just a coward who fled at the sight of Esti. Perhaps her level has increased since then, but she is still very far from reaching the level of a dragon. And then Noah shouted to Esti, "Careful, my father is there." She replied that she had heard that meeting people's parents was considered a serious step, and she asked if he wanted to marry her. Noah was embarrassed and asked where she had heard such strange things. He lunged at her, swinging to strike, but Esti stopped the attack with her tail. The blade cracked and shattered into pieces on impact. He threw one fragment aside, it disappeared into the hot lava. Then Noah took out a second sword. He decided, if this sword breaks too, he will run away. This will be his last chance. If the third one breaks, then even if he wins, Esti won't be able to return. He'll die on the way without a weapon. Although he has never defeated Esti yet, he asked, "Shouldn't you introduce your friends to your family?" The dragoness replied, "You brought them without my permission. It is disrespectful. And besides, there is a sage among them." "That old woman can't even handle the wind," Esti declared. Lulu was offended. "Don't call me old." They hadn't seen each other for about 100 years. Esti admitted that Lulu had changed, for the better. But Lulu didn't even live to be 100 years old. The nomad asked, "Why attack Noah? After all, they are friends." Lala explained, "Befriending monsters is a little different. They greet you with attacks." She herself has a dragon friend. They meet and immediately fight, and to run away is an insult. Matt added, "You can't befriend a monster unless you fought one at least once. But even if it's a game, without real strength you can get seriously hurt. It's no longer just fun." Suddenly, Esti spread her wings and began an attack consisting of swift slashing blows. She was throwing her own scales at Noah, an invisible, deadly shower, but he dodged deftly, as if he had seen each of them. Despite his invisibility, he navigated the storm with his scales as if in slow motion. He ran along the cliff, gradually approaching his goal, Esta herself. He clearly knew where his ultimate goal was. Keeping a close eye on the dragon's body during the battle, he noticed a lighter patch of scales behind her left shoulder. Running with the load was difficult, so he abruptly dropped his backpack. With a sudden jerk, Esty disappeared from view. Once behind, Noah instantly prepared to strike, and with a battle cry he flew down, driving his sword into his shoulder area. The blade split immediately, and with it, the scales from her body. Noah couldn't contain his joy. He had finally succeeded. Clutching the trophy, he began to fall down along with the fragments of the sword. But Esty's giant paw gently caught him in mid-fall. She smiled and congratulated him on his victory. He had done it. And all this is thanks to being behind her back and learning to see through the storm. She said she was looking forward to the next battle, and her body began to dissolve in the light. But among the scattering of fiery particles, long female hair suddenly appeared. Before them stood not a dragon, but an incredibly beautiful woman with fiery eyes, holding Noah in her arms. She placed him gently on the ground, careful as a petal. Matt immediately ran over, anxiously asking if he was okay. Noah smiled and showed him the scales he had found. It was this scale that he once used to make a sickle, the legendary Esty scale. The father grabbed his head and called his son a fool. After all, these are the scales of the queen of red dragons herself. To waste such material, tens of times more valuable than any other, just on a sickle? That's madness. But Esty calmly replied, "The sickle was for Taro. She asked for it, and I didn't get angry because it was Noah's choice." Moreover, Noah often talked about Aunt Taro, and it's only natural to give the best to those who helped. Lulu cursed him for leading them to a deadly place without warning. Her fear seemed to shorten her life by 10 years. Esty jokingly remarked, if she had already shrunk in size, she should have been in the coffin a long time ago. She turned to Noah and said, when they finally got married, they would have to get rid of everyone before he shriveled up. This from a creature that was hundreds of years old, and he was only 14. In the human world, of course, marriage at 14 is possible, but that is the privilege of the aristocracy. Noah winced at the awkward topic and asked Grandma Lulu to check his level. She looked at it and was stunned. Back at home, her level was 596, and now it's already 610. It's gone up by 14 units. In addition, it turned out that the level of black morph can also increase. Unexpectedly, Esty appeared behind Noah. She frowned. "So you only fought me for the sake of leveling up?" Noah immediately apologized and wanted to explain everything. He didn't want her to think that way. Even though they had come without permission, Esty said that was no reason to stand. The guests should be escorted on their way. Walking forward, everyone found themselves in an inner courtyard hidden in the heart of the rock. They had no idea that there was such a place in Dragon's Crest. It was as if magic had created this corner. In the shadows, Noah saw a familiar figure. It was Lambda. He greeted him. They hadn't seen each other for a long time. Then he bowed to the queen, and she asked him to make tea. After inviting everyone to sit down, Esty wanted to listen to their explanations. It later became clear that people have complex rules associated with the black morph. Esty had been interested in Noah since he started visiting the ridge. He hardly ever fought monsters. He would just take off his claws or beak and run away. This seemed strange to her. Usually wounded monsters seek revenge. She warned Noah that he wouldn't do this outside the crest. Very intelligent creatures live here, and she made a deal with Noah. He was risking his own life, and she was risking her materials. If Noah dies before he gets the material, he loses. If he gets it before he dies, the monster loses and must retreat. Over time, this agreement became an unspoken law in these parts. And since then, Noah has never lost a single fight. All fights are victorious. And no one had ever heard of such a rule before. But Esty asked to be understood correctly. This rule only applies between Noah and the locals. If an outsider comes, even if he gets the material, he will still be persecuted. Because Noah is special, no matter what you say. After all, in all the time he was in Dragon's Crest, he hadn't killed a single monster. even when they were weaker and attacked themselves. He just took what he needed and ran away. Moreover, he never attacked first. Curious, Esti once approached him and asked why he was coming at all, and he answered honestly, he needed materials and ore, that's all. They were for his father, who had started drinking after his mother died. Noah was looking for the best ore so he could pick up the hammer again. This deeply moved Esti, because usually everyone who came to their lands had one goal: to kill the fire dragon. Although dragons themselves were not born warlike, Noah was a child when he first came here. He came every day, and over time they got used to him. The dragons became like family to him. Some still attacked, but over time his style became useful training for the young monsters. Eventually, he began to compete even with Esti herself, and he never changed. She attacked with all her might, and he was just trying to get the material. After every fight, he stayed to talk, and from then on she always looked forward to his visit. Lulu has known for a long time, although few people understand this. To gain experience, you don't have to kill, you just have to challenge someone stronger. The higher the level of the enemy, the more experience. But no one takes the risk because it's too dangerous. If an adventurer fights with an equal or weaker opponent, he will only gain experience after killing them. And he will also receive meat and materials. But it's expensive. Noah only takes a beak or claw, and if he gets hurt, he heals himself and goes after his prey again. So that's why he doesn't kill anyone. And he timidly asked Esti, "You aren't angry?" But she just smiled warmly. "On the contrary, I like it." As Noah said, when you kill a monster, it's all over. Lulu decided to explain with an example. If you kill the Dragon Queen, you'll gain a level, well, 100 points. And that's it. She didn't know what level Esti was, 2,000 or 3,000. But if you fight such an opponent every day, your level will grow steadily. 5 levels in 20 days, and you're already plus 100. This is how the mystery of Noah's rapid growth in level is revealed. But suddenly Esti came up and grabbed Nomad by the chin. She looked him in the eye, searchingly. "Are you Noah's father?" She knew that it was after his wife's death that he had given up and abandoned forging. He was tricked. He sold the swords and materials for next to nothing. And now Noah is forced to search for the ore himself. She stated that Nomad owed Noah a lot. A good guy, a friend, who had even been trained by a dragon. Noah always hits the scales that are about to fall off. The old scales, especially on her back, itch. And Noah always helped her. It was nice. In addition, these scales are the easiest to remove. His dad's, he fought, couldn't damage Esti's scales even a little. She asked, "Is this sword really that important to you?" Noah replied seriously, "Yes, it's a sword my dad made. I've shown it to you before. It's beautiful." When ordinary steel finds itself in Dad's hands, it begins to shine brighter than the finest gems. Dirty ore turns into burning gold. Sparks fly from every blow as if the metal is reborn. As a child, he picked up the fragments of swords that cracked upon impact. Each time he returned them to his dad, and he heated them up again until they fell apart. And Noah collected them, dreaming of collecting a whole sword. The Nomad said that these fragments were indeed important for the future sword, and he did everything right then. With these words, he gently ran his hand through his hair. "Red flames, the best glow in a dark forge. That's true magic to me. And even though I'm weak at forging, that was my favorite time." Because of this, he often got angry when something didn't work out, and Mom and Dad just watched in silence. It was the memories of blacksmithing that became the most precious in his entire life. Esti listened carefully. She only said quietly that dragon and human parents were too different, and she asked, "Is this really your most precious memory?" Noah nodded. "And this father is just the one who created problems for her dear Noah." Seizing the moment, Esti created a fireball and aimed it at Nomad, supposedly to get rid of the excess. Noah instantly jumped up. "What are you saying?" she asked in surprise. "Isn't he much weaker than you?" Noah asked in response. "So, is that the reason?" Is there really no value in your world except power? He added. Esty was silent for a moment and then said that she wanted to see if he was really who he said he was. If he was protecting the weak blacksmith like that. She unexpectedly suggested, "Let's go together to the city of people." The entire company raised its eyebrows in surprise. No one expected this. Noah replied in fear, "No need. As soon as you show up there, the city will explode in panic." Then Lambda turned to Esty. "What about today's plan? What will you say if your grandfather asks?" She sighed. "Don't push. The other dragon's messengers can wait." Noah turned to Lambda. "Stop her." But he only shook his head. He couldn't. And he asked permission to join them, to accompany her. Esty was even surprised. "Are you going to?" But he only nodded seriously. "Even if Her Majesty goes to the city of people, it is my duty to be there." Lambda looked a lot like Esty, even his facial features, even though they were dragons. So Esty solemnly announced, "We are going to the city of people." Eventually, they arrived at the Eastern Royal Adventurers Guild. The team decided to observe Noah under the cover of invisibility magic, and he was ordered to boldly register as an adventurer and obtain a tamer's license. Except for Nomad, all the members of the group were quite well-known personalities. They didn't want to attract attention, so they used magic. Noah didn't object, but asked permission to be accompanied. After all, this was his first visit to the guild, and he knew nothing. He grabbed the door handle and opened it for the first time. Finally, he joined the Adventurers Guild, and all eyes immediately turned to him. It seemed as if this child had simply gotten lost. A man approached him and asked if he had any errands. Noah answered honestly, "My grandmother asked me to register with the guild." The man laughed. He said, "The boy was going to become an adventurer? Absurd." And he advised not to make up nonsense. This is a profession where death is always nearby. You better go play ball. Noah thanked him politely, but added that he didn't care at all. One of Emerton's friends, that was the man's name, laughed. The child showed him no respect. He even offered to teach the kid some manners, but Emerton refused. But his friend still pressured Noah. Then Emerton frowned. "Are you deaf?" His friend immediately fell silent. He knew when it was better not to joke, and maybe it's a good thing Esty didn't come here. If the adventurers had seen her, it's scary to imagine what could have happened. When Esty was still suggesting going to the human city, another voice suddenly sounded. Nearby, a giant dragon paw slammed to the ground. This dragon was clearly older than Esty. It was her grandfather. Grandfather turned to Lambda and sternly remarked, "You should have stopped her, not flirted." His name was Sebastian. He leaned over to Noah and apologized, for her and for Lambda, for causing trouble again. Then he grabbed Esty and Lambda by the collar and told them it was time to leave. The storm dragon's messenger was already waiting for them. Esty shouted to Noah, "Save me!" But it was no use. Sebastian only politely apologized to Noah's family and flew away with the couple. They disappeared into the sky so quickly that not even a trace was left. The Dragon Queen turned out to be a child. Noah sighed. It was Lord Sebastian, although maybe that's not even his real name. As far as he knew, Sebastian was the strongest majordomo among all the fire dragons. Whatever the case, Noah's level has risen again, and it's time to go back to registering with the guild. Inside, Noah finally found the reception desk. There he was met by a cute rabbit girl, quite expected for an adventurer's guild. And against her background, the administrator of the blacksmith's guild looked like a dirty old man. The girl explained, "In the black box, you need to write your name, date of birth, race, blood type, medical history, and allergies. Everything outside the box, she will fill it in herself. Such data will come in handy. If the cardholder faints, doctors will know how to help. This is especially important for healing magic, because some people are allergic even to it." Noah asked in surprise, "What would happen if you cast a healing spell on an allergy sufferer?" The girl explained, "The body goes into a state of retreatment. Swelling appears, difficulty breathing, and terrible fatigue. That's why it's important to write it down. But skills are personal information. not needed for treatment, so it's not necessary to indicate them. And then the receptionist finally asked, did Noah's parents allow him to join the Adventurers Guild at that age? Because for children under 12, a guardian signature is required. But fortunately, Noah is already 14. The girl was even surprised. She couldn't believe that he was really 14. This law was passed so that orphans wouldn't become adventurers too early and die in monster lands trying to earn money for food. Noah doesn't have a mom, but he does have a dad, so legally everything is in order. There is no need to indicate a permanent place of residence. Adventurers rarely have a home. If you develop an allergy while traveling, you should let them know. And there are restrictions on healing magic during pregnancy and breastfeeding. Even if Noah can't get pregnant, rules are rules. In the profession column, Noah honestly wrote blacksmith's apprentice. But a familiar voice came from behind him. It was Emerton. He mockingly said that a journeyman blacksmith had no business in the guild, and he hinted that he'd better write something more serious, like swordsman or hunter. However, Sue, the girl behind the counter, immediately warned that falsely stating one's profession is a violation of Article 4 of the Guild Code. Emerton shrugged it off, saying the kid was setting himself up for execution and it wasn't his job to stop him, because if he's a swordsman or a hunter, even a novice, he can join the team. But no one will even look at a blacksmith's apprentice. They'll consider him a burden. And if they do, it will only be swindlers who will then rob him. One way is to become a loner, and that is a direct road to death. Let me at least stop you, he said. But Sue pointed out that joining a guild and choosing a team is everyone's personal responsibility. Then she leaned over to Noah and whispered, don't hold a grudge against Emerton, because he's a talented B-rank adventurer, and he always intervenes when a newcomer risks doing something stupid to save the day. Adventurers almost never fight higher-ranked opponents. Noah understood everything. He even noticed how the others looked at Emerton with irritation. But suddenly Sue remembered. Does Noah have an ID card? She explained, this is a card for citizens registered in the capital. They are given a number and a card instead of a birth certificate. If you have a card, you can link it to an adventurer's card. Noah suggested that perhaps she had been there once, from a government agency, but where she was now, he didn't know. Sue nodded. It happens. People often come and ask for a number, but Noah couldn't even remember what she looked like. If we even knew the number, it would be much easier. Then Sue took out a tool, the magic level gauge. She explained, if the level is less than 5 and there is no card, registration is not possible today. Citizens with ID can start from the initial cave of the kingdom. In other words, if level 5 or lower, you need a card. If level 6 or higher, you're fine. Because the tool converts level into heat. One level melts one candle. 20 candles are placed on a stone slab. Each one melts according to its level. 10 candles is level 10. How do you measure those who are, say, level 40? Noah asked. This is rare in the registration of beginners, but for experienced ones there are other tools, up to level 200 and even up to level 500. Finally, he was asked to place his hand on the device, and instantly, all 20 candles melted in 1 second. Those present looked at each other in confusion. It seemed that the device had broken. Sue suggested repeating the procedure, but the effect was the same. The candles melted again at the same time. Emerton and Sue looked a little stunned. Then Noah asked, since my level is over 6, does that mean I can become an adventurer? But Emerton intervened. It was too strange. The device had never made such a sound before. He asked for the board to be brought to level 200 for testing. Sue brought a board for 18 candles. The first one melts only at level 30, then one every 10 levels, maximum 200. And Emerton himself was the first to decide to try. Emerton put his hand on the stove. Only 2.5 candles had melted. It was an accurate reaction. His level was 45, the limit for B class, and the instrument confirmed its functionality. Sue just sighed. It could have been done without permission. It's hard to clean it up now. She carefully cleaned the residue and inserted new candles. And she turned to Noah again. Try again. Put your hand down. As soon as the boy's fingers touched the stove, all 18 candles melted simultaneously. Both of them froze in an even deeper stupor, as if time had stopped. And in a moment, Sue rushed upstairs, bursting into tears, to call the master. Emerton's acquaintances came up to him at the noise. He said that the boy was just an ordinary blacksmith's apprentice. But the reality stunned everyone. The guy was at least level 200. Everyone froze in shock. Noah just wanted to run home, to hide from view. In his mind, he called for help from his grandmother, grandfather, anyone. But everyone just looked at him and smiled. He had to accept that his level was indecently high. He was looked upon as a saint. But Noah grumbled in his mind. It's not fair. Grandmas Lulu and Lala are even stronger. At that moment, Sue was hurrying down the stairs, the guildmaster walking beside her. An old man with horns appeared before Noah, the guildmaster himself. He saw with his own eyes a child whose level exceeded 200. Sue confirmed, "That's him, and the board is fine. Emerton checked it." The guildmaster looked at Noah carefully, as if trying to scan him. Then he said, "If something is wrong with the stove, it doesn't mean that the stove is to blame." He introduced himself, the guildmaster of the Eastern Adventurers Guild, named Sunward. But with a smile, he added, "Just call me Sinochka." In his hands was a jingling bell, a well-known attribute of the shopping street. He mentioned the New Year's lottery, and Noah remembered that the guild was also located on this street. This year, the main prize was promised to be 3 times bigger, from 5 to 10 kilos of meat. Noah's eyes lit up. He shouted, "Son, you are the best in the world. A piece of meat like that is a dream for dogmen and beastmen." He participated every year, but he only won second place, Pollock Row. By the way, Sunward won the same thing. These two lottery fans seemed to have found a kindred spirit. It was the first time anyone had actually called Sunward Sonny. Sue brought him back to reality. "Master," he nodded, "about the lottery later. There are more important things to do." And he admitted he had already checked Noah's status on his own, without his consent. In a guild, the maximum you can be ranked is up to level 500. This board is only up to 200. The last level is Guildmaster. Prazel's magic allows him to see up to 3 times his own level. Sunward has 169, so the maximum he can see is up to level 507. But even that wasn't enough. He couldn't see Noah's status at all. The silence lasted for several seconds, and everyone realized the guy exceeds level 500. And this is a boy who could be cut in half with one blow. One of the crowd even wanted to check it out for himself, but Noah froze. His chest tightened. Something bad was coming. But Sunward raised his hand, stopping everyone, and calmly said, "Level does not mean strength." He suggested that if Noah called himself a blacksmith's apprentice, then he probably gained experience through blacksmithing. But even so, level over 500? This isn't just training in hell. Something more is needed here. And suddenly, a familiar voice sounded behind him. Grandma Lulu appeared from the shadows and said that he had obtained it by collecting ore in the endless desert. Emerton flinched. He hadn't noticed her approach from behind. But Sunward, recognizing his teacher, was even more shocked. He immediately knelt down. "What have we done wrong that you have come down from heaven to us?" Lulu waved her hand. Nothing special. She just happened to be with Noah, saw a familiar face, and decided to show herself. She didn't even know that Sunward was the current guildmaster. She asked, "How are you?" He replied in confusion that everything was fine, and in response asked, "So Noah is your student, then everything becomes clear." Lulu asked if he had any students now since he had been one of hers, but Sunward sheepishly admitted that he still didn't train anyone. Meanwhile, passers-by began to recognize Lula, the great sage, Guildmaster's teacher. Such an honor to see Lady Lulu herself. But Lulu just smiled. "Noah is not my student." She pointed at Nomad. "He is the disciple of the divine blacksmith." The crowd froze. No one had ever heard that nickname, but if so, then that blacksmith must be somewhere under 1,000 levels. Here Lala came up, another blow to Sunward. She asked, "So, what's up with Noah's registration?" He immediately agreed to confirm it. It was scary to even imagine how these grandmothers punished their students in their youth. Meanwhile, Noah stood at the counter next to Sue. Check-in was nearing completion. The guildmaster reminded, no matter what level, everyone starts at rank F. Level is not combat skill. When Noah reaches rank B or higher, the card will be automatically renewed until death or official cancellation. To replace it, please contact the nearest guild. Sue handed Noah his brand new guild card. And then Noah remembered. He also came for a tamer's license. Sue was surprised. Why would an apprentice blacksmith need her? But she still submitted the magic bullet for testing. The ball caught fire, so Noah did have the taming skill, level 5. Sue noted it on her card. It turns out that adventurers have to update their status on their own. Sue warned, if Noah did not complete at least one task within a month, his registration would be canceled. But you will definitely need a tamer license in the future. You just need to reach rank B. And if those who are at rank S themselves say this, there is no other way. Lala and Lulu are S ranked, and Nomad was once B ranked. Sue returned and apologized for the delay. But the main thing is that everything is now officially resolved with the license. After the appearance of the grandmothers, the entire guild looked pale, from head to toe. Sue was smiling, but there was something disturbing in her gaze. And the talkative Emerton suddenly fell silent and, saying goodbye, wished Noah only good luck. Registration was complete, and the entire group left the Eastern Guild under the gaze of astonished and silent witnesses. Once home, they tried to wake Gerald, who was mumbling in his sleep about documents and incorrect calculations. Suddenly he jumped up. He remembered the demonic beast. Noah immediately showed him his tamer card, now an official license. Gerald was shocked. The guy didn't even know such a thing existed, and now he has one. Noah explained to Gerald that everything was done while he was asleep. In fact, he had already received the license after he had started the magical creature. Lulu reproachfully asked why he was spoiling the boy's mood. He had spent so much effort improving his taming skills, and Jir's attitude was undermining his efforts. Noah looked at him with sad, dog-like eyes. Isn't it really possible? Unable to bear it any longer, Gerald finally agreed to amend the code. From now on, anyone who tamed a magical creature before obtaining a license would be considered its legal owner. Everyone sighed with relief. Then Lala asked Lulu, "What's next? The way home is not far." Gerald said he could return to the palace in 2 hours and asked the twins if they had been to the estate in the capital. They replied that they were in the neighboring country of Soyuz, and it turns out that they crossed the border there and back illegally. If they were summoned urgently by a magical artifact, then this is a separate legal case. Noah, hearing all this, invited everyone to stay with them for the night. The twins wanted to see their daily lives, so they didn't mind, even if they didn't get to see the afternoon. But Nomad suddenly stood up and said he was summoned not for taming, but because of Noah's abnormally high level. Level 596 was absurd for a blacksmith's apprentice. "What should I do with this?" he asked in despair. But the twins just calmly replied, "Everything has already been decided." Their investigation showed that the level increase was legal, and it was better not to change anything. The main thing is to let Noah continue fighting the dragon. Lala suddenly snapped. "What are you shouting about? It's your own fault that you climbed Dragon Ridge. Who was I collecting ore for if you didn't process it?" They barely survived because of him. They registered Noah with the guild. His strange method of extracting ore is his business, but everything else now falls on the shoulders of the nomad. Noah suggested that Gerald look at the materials he had collected himself. Gerald was immediately interested. Noah had a secret warehouse, hidden even from his father, so that he wouldn't sell everything indiscriminately. Gerald was touched that he was allowed to look in, but Nomad was not. He was not yet trusted. But Noah still let him have it. If he hadn't been drinking lately, maybe it would help him regain his blacksmithing enthusiasm. Apparently, the nomad was in a completely neglected state. Together, they set off for the warehouse behind the main forge. But when they opened the door, they saw emptiness. And Omura's equipment was gone too. Gerald was interested in the second floor, but Noah assured him that there was nothing there. And in general, Mom's things shouldn't have been in this building. Maybe Nomad had already sold everything. Gerald couldn't believe it. A nomad couldn't be that stupid, he thought. But his father's look betrayed everything. He had indeed sold Omara's things. Gerald grabbed him by the collar. This is not just equipment, this is a national relic. A memory of Omora, legendary swords. But suddenly Nomad asked, "Didn't you take them, Gerald?" 3 days after Omora's funeral, a messenger from the royal palace came to him. He declared, since Omora was dead, Nomad was now a stranger, and all her belongings were the property of the kingdom. He took everything he could. The only thing left was Noah. Nomad thought Gerald was angry with him for marrying Omora, so he decided to give everything to appease him. But he wasn't the one who sent the messenger. Gerald was stunned. He didn't understand what it was all about. His sister's equipment is a royal heirloom, but it's also a memory of her. "I asked you to leave everything to Noah, and I didn't send anyone," he said firmly. The nomad froze in horror. His whole life changed in a matter of seconds. It turns out that immediately after her mother's death, an imposter appeared, calling himself Uncle Jerome, and took her equipment. This means that the fraudster acted under the name of the kingdom. "Is it that bad?" Noah asked quietly. Lulu answered without a shadow of a doubt. "Worse than a thief. Impersonating a representative of the kingdom is a crime on the level of forging royal decrees. This has not happened for many years." Noah wondered, who is this imposter then? It turns out that 8 years ago, he gave Omar's things to the criminal. He had a decree with the seal of the kingdom. Even a distrustful person like Nomad believed in its authenticity. But decrees are not issued without the king's seal. Gerald could not have known that. So someone had learned to forge the highest documents. He apologized to Noah and said he would show the composition another time. He must immediately return to the castle and begin searching for the swindler. If false decrees are created by people from the royal entourage, this is a threat of a national scale. He warned that he would return for testimony and asked everyone to assist in the investigation. And with these words, he left anxiously. Lulu just sighed. Why is he so sad? Scammers always take a dangerous path. They just got lucky for too long this time. If they hadn't been careful, they could have been caught while transporting their equipment. Forging decrees is a serious matter, but it looks like the handwriting of an amateur. Noah looked at his father, gave him a slight push, and said, "The past is behind us. Uncle Jer will return Mom's things," and he led them to his secret warehouse. 2. They approached a pile of trash that Noah said was a warehouse. The guy took out the key, opened the lock, and opened the door. Inside, he lit a lamp and placed a candle in it. An even greater mess opened up before them. But Nomad was genuinely intrigued, even though Lulu didn't see anything valuable there. Noah agreed. There really wasn't anything valuable there, but how interesting. He said the real stuff was deeper and started to open the next lock. "Please join the real squad," he said solemnly. A sea of rare materials spread out before them. In one corner are mountains of Dragon Queen scales and obsidian. In the other, silver ore, titanium, orichalcum, adamantite, fire dragon scales, griffin feathers, manticore needles, flying serpent horns, although how did it all end up here in the first place? Also, sea serpent skin, vampire fangs, magic clover, mist tiger teeth. He was rightly asked the question, where did you get the ingredients that can't be found in the desert or on the dragon's back? Suddenly, Nomad almost stepped on a unicorn horn and a mermaid's pearl. He didn't care. He was going to crush it anyway. But the very desire to crush such treasures is madness. And then Matt grabs him by the skin. Lulu demanded an explanation. After all, a sea serpent, a mermaid, and a unicorn do not live in a fire dragon's lair. And a magic clover? Queen of Shoulders honey? Such things are only obtained from dungeon bosses. Even if we assume that he wandered through the dungeons, Bosses don't reappear after death. Kill one and the others won't find him. In this world, in addition to ordinary places, there are also dungeons, dens of monsters with special rules. In a dungeon, after killing a monster, the body disappears, leaving only the chance of a drop. How this works is unknown. Dungeons are always teeming with adventurers, and there are three reasons for this. The first is that if you don't hunt monsters, they will leave the dungeon and start attacking people. So guilds are constantly issuing quests. Second, trophy chests appear again and again. They contain weapons, armor, jewelry, and sometimes magical artifacts. Third, there are monsters that are only found in dungeons, and items that can only be obtained from them. Why are dungeons like this? Maybe they are living creatures that lure people in. But even after the boss dies, the dungeon itself doesn't disappear. And only Noah had the boss trophies that even heroes and great sages could win once or twice in their lifetime. Here was a real arsenal. Lulu demanded an immediate explanation. Noah raised his hands up and calmly replied, "Calm down. I wanted to tell you everything. I wasn't going to hide it." But suddenly there was a thump. Someone was running away from the monsters. The creepy skeletons had almost reached their victim. There were only a few steps left. But Noah managed to grab the girl and pull her away from death. "Are you okay?" he asked. She nodded quickly. "Yes, thank you." However, no one noticed how a body moved again among the skeletons. "We need to get out of here. They can recover from destruction," Noah said quietly. After some time, the girl learned that he did not come from the guild. Surprised, she asked, "Where are the others?" It turned out that they had escaped. The dungeon turned out to be too difficult. She introduced herself as Celia, a new magician from the guild. She thanked him for saving her, and Noah admitted that he wasn't registered yet. He was just looking for materials for forging. He was a blacksmith's apprentice. It was strange to see such a small boy in such a dangerous place. "Why did you stay when everyone else left?" he asked. Celia lowered her gaze. "Because if the monsters aren't destroyed, others will suffer." But at the same moment, the familiar skeletons reappeared nearby. Without hesitation, Noah cut them into pieces in a single motion. Celia froze in surprise. Such strength at such an age? But it wasn't the first time Noah had been in such dungeons. He was used to it. After thinking for a moment, Celia timidly suggested, "Maybe let's go to the boss's lair together?" Noah also had business with the boss, but decided to deal with the rest first. "I'll be back tomorrow. He's not going anywhere." But Celia exclaimed in fright, "There is no time. My younger sister is seriously ill." The boss leaves behind a heavenly ruby, a component for a medicine that could save her. "I don't need it. If it falls out, pick it up," Noah simply replied. Celia almost cried with happiness. "And if a threat like a demon spider happens to fall out, I'll take it," the boy added. "It's nothing valuable to forge anyway." They reached an open area. A passageway was visible ahead. The boss of this dungeon was waiting for him. Celia trembled. "This will be my first boss fight," she whispered. Noah reassured her. "It's not necessary to win. The main thing is to survive." "How can I not win? I don't know anything. I've been preparing magic formulas for eternity." The girl was confused. Then she asked, "What is your level?" "I don't know myself." Noah shrugged. Celia froze. She seemed to have completely misjudged him. She suggested they turn back, but they were already inside the zone. A surprisingly beautiful area opened up before them. "Careful," Noah said. "You can't see the boss, but he's definitely here." And then Celia noticed the chest. Without thinking, she rushed toward her. "Stop!" Noah shouted, but it was too late. A huge demonic spider was hiding on the ceiling. He released a web straight at Celia, but Noah flew forward and managed to cut the thread before it reached its goal. "It started! He's attacking!" the boy warned. The spider fell from the ceiling with a thud. It was the dungeon boss himself. "Step back, I'll take him myself," Noah said confidently. "But we can defeat him together," Celia exclaimed. But Noah had already taken off again and parried the boss's blow without even looking back at her. At first glance, it was clear that Noah was not afraid of this monster and rushed to attack himself. Celia realized that she could no longer just stand and watch. She began to recite the spell, concentrating on each syllable. Noah approached the spider and swung for a powerful blow. But he missed. He struck too early. The opponent dodged. He patiently waited for the right moment, dodging blows with incredible agility. Watching the battle, Celia thought that he wouldn't be able to handle it himself after all. His attacks were lightning fast, but not deadly. Suddenly, the spider's paw hit Noah with all its might. The sword flew out of the boy's hands and fell to the side with a thud. The spider instantly launched an attack, intending to finish him off. Celia trembled, but in her mind she remembered. She was a warrior too. She must fight. She remembered showing her sister the adventurer uniform she had received from the guild. She's still a newbie, but she promised to find a cure so her sister could run and laugh again. "Lie down for a while and thank me in advance," Celia said mentally. And she swore to herself she would keep her promise at any cost. Suddenly, a magic circle flared up around her. She released a powerful spell directly at the monster. The explosion raised a cloud of dust and debris. Celia was already happy. Was the spider really dead? But Noah grumbled. Why was it so harsh? And then the spider's red eyes flashed from the dust. Noah barely managed to dodge and covered Celia with himself. The spider was still standing, but its legs were visibly trembling. It was on the verge of collapse. Suddenly, he staggered, weakened. Noah realized that there was no point in fighting anymore. "Why are we running away if we didn't kill him?" Celia asked in surprise. "You don't have to kill him," he replied. "Then how do we get out?" "Until we kill the boss, the exit won't open," she exclaimed. "There is another way," Noah replied calmly. "Not everyone knows it, but there is a workaround." A teleportation portal glowed behind the spider's back. "He will make it himself, but will Celia make it in time?" There was no choice. We had to attack again. Noah even thought for a moment, maybe it really would be better to kill the spider. But there was no time. He decided to distract the monster while Celia fled to the teleport. The guy hit the spider right in the torso, and magical material fell out of it. "Run to the teleporter, quickly!" Noah shouted. A strange thought flashed through my mind. Could Celia swim? As soon as they stepped onto the stove, they were instantly transported, and they found themselves underwater. A huge water creature appeared before them. It was a sea serpent. Celia turned pale with horror. The snake growled and threw them further into the depths with a stream of water. And yet, they managed to avoid danger and get out alive. Unfortunately, the heavenly ruby did not fall out, only a thread. But Noah was not upset. The materials of the sea serpent were also valuable. Celia breathed a sigh of relief. She had been certain she would die. Their survival was a miracle. She indignantly asked why he had stopped her. A little more and they would have finished off the spider. But then she noticed the prey in Noah's hands, even though the spider hadn't been killed. Noah explained, "You don't have to kill the boss to get rare material. In dungeons, loot sometimes drops even without defeating the boss, although with a lower probability." He discovered this pattern when he attacked bosses dozens of times, and they then fully restored their health. This allowed him to try again to knock out the desired one. That's why he insisted on not killing the spider. One day, a heavenly ruby would surely fall out of it. Hearing this, Celia was overjoyed and hugged Noah. Only he knows things that others don't even suspect. Noah said they would return to the boss's lair. Celia understood. She would have to go down to the magic circle on the seabed again. Noah had not yet obtained the necessary material from the snake, and until the desired item falls out, it will return again and again. Using this scheme, enter, injure, capture, escape, Noah collected a bunch of rare materials from various bosses. Grandma Lulu and Uncle Jarrett could kill the boss with one blow, so they didn't even suspect such a trick. And to continuously attack and retreat requires incredible endurance. Only Noah can do that. Lulu began to doubt that she was a great sage, and Lala was embarrassed to bear the title of legendary thief. There is still so much unknown in this world. and there is always something to strive for. Noah asked them not to be upset. He had only accidentally discovered it due to minor damage. Only Noah could dodge the boss's blows so easily and stand calmly on the teleport plate. The others try to kill the boss because they believe there is no other way. Lala and Lulu realized that it was too early for them to retire. They were just chicks at the start. Lalu was haunted by one question: had their level improved? Lulu checked and was really surprised. Her level had increased by 4. The last time she managed to do this was a long time ago. She had already forgotten what a level up was. This story became an invaluable experience for them. And not only for them. Kajir Moger's squad gained 5 times more experience thanks to his unique skill. It seems that this furry creature considered them teammates during the battle with the fire dragon. Noah assumed that he simply helped because he was nearby. They gently stroked him, calling him a good boy. But something else was bothering them. They were ashamed to gain experience by standing aside, doing nothing. For the great sage and the legendary thief, this is a real shame. And they swore it will never happen again. Black Morph was frightened and burst into tears. Noah reassured the grandmothers. The furry one didn't mean anything bad. Nomad approached them. He asked again, "Noah, is it true that you have ore and materials here?" Noah confirmed. He forged swords and sickles from these materials. These were just raw materials. The ore still needed to be smelted, purified, and converted into pure metal, and the rest needed to be crushed, ground, and added during forging. Everyone was hearing this for the first time. No one had ever thought about how materials were turned into weapons before. Ore is full of impurities. It is smelted in a furnace, refined, and only then does it become steel or orichalcum. Other materials are crushed with a magical tool, ground into powder, and mixed with the weapon in the forging process. The grandmothers thanked Noah for the valuable explanation. There was once a blacksmith shop that he often visited. After Omora's death, an accident occurred there, and the injured man closed himself off from the world. Later, a new forge, Prusella, was opened. He delivered ore there, but even the best raw material was turned into second-rate metal there. Yes, they smelted the ore, but the degree of purification was low, so Nomad had to temper it 5 times longer than usual to make even one sword. In addition, the metal produced was many times less than the ore it yielded. Something had to be done about this as soon as possible. Of course, he thought about it, but other forges didn't take orders from ordinary blacksmiths, as they were busy working with big clients. He gave the ore for 2 swords, but the result shocked him. In general, only a few forges are capable of working with orichalcum or adamantite, as these metals are too rare and difficult to process. As Nomad explained, the ore order is placed by the Blacksmith Guild, passed on to the Adventurer Guild, who collects the ore and takes it to the smelter. The finished metal goes back to the guild, which then distributes it among the regular blacksmiths. But regardless of skill, rare metals are always in high demand. Due to the large number of applicants, Nomad almost never got anything. Orichalcum or adamantite rarely appeared on the market, and the queues bought everything up in seconds. Then Omora suggested mining the ore herself and personally carrying it to smelting. But while Nomad was busy, everything Omora had once collected was long gone. Noah didn't even suspect this. He felt ashamed that he had reprimanded his father, knowing nothing himself. But he thought, after his mother's death, when Nomad, knowing only blacksmithing, found himself trapped, tricked into giving up all his resources, that's when he started drinking. The grandmothers looked at each other. Everything fell into place. Noah asked how Nomad had fulfilled Uncle Jir's order. Jir replied that he had instructed Matt to exchange the ore for metal. Matt, who no one knows, would go to the guild and place orders. That's how they survived, 2 or 3 times a year. Lala and Lulu didn't even know about it. All the ore that Noah collected and stored in the warehouse went to Matt. And all this time, Noah thought his father was just selling ore for booze. But Nomad asked in surprise, what kind of blacksmith would exchange ore for alcohol anyway? Noah froze upon hearing this. It turned out that his father hadn't changed, the same one he and his mother loved. Although he drank often and barely made ends meet, he never gave up his job. The best blacksmith remained the same, a simple, stubborn, and kind man. Despite all the troubles, he continued to work. Noah hugged him and apologized for being wrong about him. The nomad said everything was fine, but he was interested in something else. He asked who was smelting the obsidian for Noah then. But Noah replied that he did not hand over the obsidian to anyone for smelting. Nomad hoped that Noah had not used the ore in its raw form, because ore without processing is just stone. You can't make a weapon out of it, even with metal inside. But Noah only told the truth. Nomad was ruthless in the matter of blacksmithing. Noah turned to Lulu. Had Nomad's level increased? This morning he was level 80, and now he's level 92. Now he's offered to collect ore with Noah. He only returned from the lair of the Fire Dragon Queen thanks to Lulu's protective barrier. Otherwise, he would have died. She understood. Nomad had neither fighting nor defensive skills. Noah noted that he should have 12 skill points. He was offered to open the skills window. When he did, Noah advised him to learn the skill of metal detection. But this skill is considered the least in demand among all blacksmithing skills. Metal detecting is a skill that allows you to find different metals around you. But a true blacksmith shouldn't rely on skill to distinguish metals. Papa Noe was level 80, and most blacksmiths weren't even level 10, so they spent their points on something more useful. No one was foolish enough to waste them on something like that. However, he personally needed it desperately. He was only 8 when he started collecting ore. He didn't know what iron, silver, lead, or tin looked like, and he hadn't even heard of orichalcum or mithril. The glasses he received from Noah gave him access to this skill, so he could use it. Hesitantly, he spent his skill points on metal detection. The first level allows you to recognize tin and lead. The second, gold and silver. The third, titanium and mithril. The fourth, orichalcum and adamantite. The fifth, all existing metals. And then, access to the skill or identification opens. And now he had to master this skill, even if Nomad could already tell the difference between red and black. They spent 10 skill points, 2 more left. The Nomad asked in surprise, "What kind of skills are these anyway?" Only the owner can see the skills window, so everything was explained to him verbally. If you master metal detection to the maximum, the ore detection skill will be unlocked. And when you raise it to the maximum, 2 more skills become available. These skills were identifying alloys and melting metal. Everyone was surprised, because Nomad could now do without mediocre forges and smelt metal on his own. The Nomad could not believe that he was able to work as a full-fledged blacksmith again. He was happy, and Noah added that he would need to raise the smelting skill level to 5, and then metal refining. The Nomad asked again. On the second level, only tin and iron can be smelted, but it turned out that it wasn't. The level only affects the speed. At the second level, melting would be slow, but possible, and at the 5th level, it would be instantaneous. This isn't some 3-month wait. Now he won't have to go to bad blacksmiths or ask Matt for help. He thanked Matt for everything he had done, and grabbing Noah by the shoulder, he announced that he was returning to blacksmithing. They have somehow mastered the skill of smelting, but now they need to learn how to purify the metal to the maximum. We will have to drag Nomad to the lair of the Fire Queen of Dragons several more times, and the furry little black guy will probably help, even though he was trembling with fear recently. Noah suggested that the grandmothers go with them to the Dragon's Ridge. Of course, Omura would be worried, but they couldn't do it without Nomad. In response, the grandmothers looked at Nomad with predatory eyes. They spent the next few days together on Dragon's Backbone. Noah's father successfully raised his melting and purification levels, and the little black furry added him to the group to give experience. By the way, they never went to the SD, even though he had something for his father. But they had already asked for help for the furry one. It would be impolite to ask again. 2 days have passed. The Nomad looked tired and asked why Noah was so cheerful. But it's time to try out a new melting skill. Before that, they decided to finish what they had started. He asked to show the sickle for Tarita. He only found out the day before yesterday that Noah had forged it, and he wanted to see the process. But he had to go to the Dragon's Ridge together. Noah was nervous. It was the first time his father had watched him blacksmith. Even though he had been holding a hammer for 5 years, he felt like he hadn't yet reached his father's level. But he wanted to show what he had learned. Remembering Aunt Tarita's complaints about weeds, he took obsidian as a base and added meteoric iron, titanium, and adamantite to it. Next are 4 materials: dragon queen scales, griffin feathers, queen bee honey, and manticore thorn. He was going to combine 4 types of metal. In their country, only 10 blacksmiths could combine 2, and Nomad was one of them. And here in the sickle there are also rare materials from bosses. It seems that this world has gone mad. First, he will melt all the metals and, through purification, increase the purity of the resulting alloy. Activating the skill, he created a clean and smooth ingot right in front of him. It was impressive. Even the cleaning took no more than a second. Even without becoming a blacksmith, Noah could already earn a living simply by cleaning metals. But once he was done with the metal, he took up the materials. Here another skill came into play: blacksmithing from materials, which no one had even heard of. As with ore, this skill ground materials into powder, usually done through a mill. The Dragon Queen scales turned to powder in an instant. Everything happened so quickly and technically that it was fascinating to watch. Then he heated the stove. When the temperature reached the desired level, he placed the metal on a spatula, wrapped it in damp paper. I sprinkled everything with a powder of materials mixed with straw ash, and carefully put everything in the oven. Then he blew air inside and carefully observed the color of the metals. As soon as they turned red, he pulled out the ingot. I hit it several times with a hammer, sprinkled with ash again, and returned to the oven. By repeating this several times, he gradually fused all 4 metals into a single ingot. He collected the bouncing sparks, leaving them hanging over the metal. Everything was merging and scattering again, melting into a single mass in the flames of hell. And it was this moment that Noah loved most of all. When the time came, he pulled out the finished piece. I lowered it into the water. It hissed, cooled down, and the world saw the blade of the sickle. Its reddish blade indicated that its base was obsidian, a sickle made of an alloy of 4 metals. I wonder how it cuts. And also, it had the queen bee's honey in it. What if it's sweet? But Noah stopped everyone. He still had to file it and make a handle. Then he looked at his father, and I noticed he was clearly dissatisfied with something. The nomad asked, "What is this nonsense about skills and materials?" Stones and materials cry because that is not their full strength. Meanwhile, on Dragon's backbone, one of the servants was looking for Her Majesty. It was Limda, and she met Lambda. She asked her brother where Her Majesty had gone. They needed to discuss tomorrow's plans. Lambda replied that Her Majesty was bathing in magma, but would emerge soon. Since yesterday, Noah has been visiting the ridge with his group. Limda asked Sebastian if he had seen it, and he confirmed it. He offered to bring them to her, but she refused. If Noah wanted to see her, he would have come alone, and probably with his father. Deep down, she hoped he wasn't angry with her. Remembering her father, she asked if the thing was ready. Sebastian replied that everything was ready and carefully stored. Hearing this, she rose from the magma. She couldn't wait to show this thing to Noah and the divine blacksmith. Meanwhile, Nomad muttered that stones and materials were crying. He carries 3 swords every day to collect ore. No wonder it all seems strange. 30 minutes to create a sickle is catastrophically short, and it seems that's how he makes swords. It's not blacksmithing. So Nomad decided, first we need to tell you that there are 2 types of blacksmithing. The first is blacksmithing, what he does, when metal is hit many times with a hammer. The second type is casting. Here, molten metal is poured into a mold. This method is not suitable for weapons, but is used for cauldrons, bells, figurines, and jewelry. Instead, True blacksmithing produces a strong, durable, and effective blade, ideal for swords and knives. Noah's mistake wasn't that he forged the sickle. The problem was in the process itself. He had neither the experience nor the knowledge, only the skills. Hearing this, Noah couldn't stand it anymore and burst into tears. He reproached his father. He didn't teach him anything, he only criticized him. But Nomad replied that blacksmithing is not taught. It is observed, copied, studied, practiced. But it seems that Noah has learned nothing. If he could, he would take up the hammer again. And he added, Noah is still too young to wield it skillfully. But Noah replied, if it weren't for that blunt sword, he wouldn't be standing here alive. Lala and Lulu looked at each other and, unable to bear it, threw water at both of them. They told us to calm down. Blacksmithing is a passionate thing, but we shouldn't forget what happened once, and we need to move differently. From now on, Nomad will forge and Noah will repeat, and so, step by step, he will take over the craft. Nomad decided to explain everything from the beginning. Blacksmithing is when you forge, and forge again. Sometimes it takes a week to make one sword. He doesn't have enough time. The red-hot metal needs to be not just beaten, it needs to be tempered. And for this, you need an assistant who clearly follows the blacksmith's instructions. Noah asked if he always worked alone. He replied that apprentices were hard to find. In any case, he asked to tell us about the metals Noah chose for the sickle. Because of its fiery nature, it was decided that it was suitable for burning weeds. Adamantite is very hard. It was added to prevent the sickle from breaking. Meteorite iron goes well with obsidian and titanium for bulk. But the product lacked hardening. The Nomad moved on to questions about materials. Dragon scales for strength, fire, dragon scales for fire resistance, griffin quill for speed, manticore spike for damage and protection, and queen bee honey for softening metal. But why does a sickle need damage and softness? Noah explained that without honey, it would be impossible to process solid adamantite. But Nomad said the problem was the insufficient temperature, and asked again about the harm. After all, Aunt Tarita protects the fields from animals. The sickle must be a fighting one. Nomad even had a headache. He grabbed Noah tightly by the shoulders. Now Noah doesn't have to worry about ore and smelting. From now on, he will be trained for real. And he would never again allow Tarita to give him an unfinished thing. The next day, Lala and Lulu arrived. They decided to return. The Nomad apologized to the grandmothers. He called them without asking. But they weren't offended. They just missed Noah's face. In the end, Nomad returned to blacksmithing. Omura will be happy. Before returning, they decided to stop by for some incense, but no one wanted to go alone. On the way, Noah will give the sickle to Aunt Tarita, and Nomad decided to go with them. He took a bottle of alcohol with him. Lala asked him not to drink near the grave, but in reality, the bottle is for Omura. They came to the grave of Noah's mother, Umura. They lit incense. They fell to their knees in prayer. Omura drank even more than Nomad when she was still healthy. They always drank together, in a friendly way. But when she got sick, she stopped using it altogether. Noah even thought that he might become an alcoholic like his father, and Lala didn't mind. She waited until he was older so they could drink together. And then Noah wondered, where was his father now? The Nomad took the bottle and poured the alcohol directly onto the grave. He apologized for the worries and promised that everything would be fine now. Since we're here, we should stop by to eat. Who knows when we'll get another chance like this? Grandmother said that only he could get items from bosses and dungeons, but Noah believed that they could too. But they objected. Even Lulu's weakest attack would kill the boss in 10 hits. Lala has speed, but she lacks stamina. 100 punches is not for her. Noah suggested that Grandma Lulu set up a magical barrier while Lala attacked, and when she got tired, they would switch. Although Lulu is not as strong as Jair, her barrier is simple, but bosses usually withstand no more than 20 hits. So Noah proposed creating a weapon that reduced damage. After all, it's better to hit with a weapon with reduced damage than with bare hands. he accidentally found a rare material that reduces damage. It was out of stock on the map, and it was hard to find. I wasn't looking for it for myself, but for Aunt Tarita and Sister Sharita. They were the only ones who needed this material. But suddenly, he saw Aunt Tarita in the field and shouted that he had brought her a sickle. She heard, stood up, and started waving back. The grandmothers remembered that the endless desert begins there, and it is impossible to grow anything among the monsters. Tarita came closer and asked if Noah had finished forging it yet. The grandmothers were surprised to recognize her. It turned out that they had known each other for a long time. Tarita is one of the few S-level adventurers in the country who has held the top position for a long time. Her full name is Winter Torrit. Noah had no idea that his aunt was an adventurer. In their region, winters are snowy and harsh, so the villagers are forced to look for part-time work. Her father couldn't travel because of the cattle, so she became an adventurer. That's what Tarita said. An S-class adventurer in the role of a peasant gatherer, now it became clear why she only appeared in winter. Noah knew she was strong and asked if she could handle the monster robber with one hand. She replied that she had taught him to fight with a sword, and she would be ashamed if she could not overcome what he had overcome himself. The nomad was stunned to learn that Noah taught the Torah, but seeing Nomad, she greeted him after a long separation. She explained that an 8-year-old child, without preparation, would not be able to survive in the endless desert. As soon as she heard this story, her hands itched. Noah stood up for his father. He had been deceived. He couldn't forge, but now he has strength again and is mining metal himself. Moreover, they had just been to their mother's grave, and their father had told her about it himself. It sounded like Nomad had made a 14-year-old boy make it up, and then he drank it again. But with a trembling voice, he thanked Tarita for taking care of his son. Tarita asked what Great Wise Lulu and Great Thief Lala were doing here. They explained that they were friends of Umura's, played with Noah as children, and thanked Tarita on her behalf for her care. Umura and Nomad moved here 6 months before Noah was born, and Tarita had no idea that Umura was an adventurer. And then Noah remembered. He took out of his backpack the sickle that Tarita had ordered. He handed it to his aunt, who immediately wanted to take a closer look. Taking the sickle, she began to examine it carefully. Raising the blade to the sun, she was able to appreciate the work even better and praise the blacksmith's art. She said that it was obvious that Noah had grown a lot in skill. He embarrassedly admitted that before that he had only made useless things, and his father had taught him real blacksmithing. He apologized for providing her with poor equipment, but now that he had begun his training, he could create for her an even more valuable sickle than this one. She gently stroked Noah's head and was eagerly awaiting this moment. And then she said it was time to test the sickle in action. Suddenly she waved her hand and threw the sickle aside. It spun at breakneck speed, crashed into a rock, and exploded. Lulu asked what happened. Tarita explained that pests were crawling outside the field again. It was time to take a look. They came for vegetables, and they themselves are as fat as wild boars. On the other hand, there will be a meat dinner today. And since it was all thanks to Noah's sickle, she decided to share it. She would cook him her favorite bacon. They moved to where the sickle fell, and from afar, the smell of roasting could be heard. Probably because of the obsidian in the sickle, Tarita was even worried about the carcass. When they got closer, they saw that the fur was completely burned, but the meat was still edible, and, as it turned out, it was no ordinary pest, but an older boar. In fact, it's a magical beast of a rather high rank, gigantic. And yet, the sickle, not being a weapon, was able to knock it down with one blow. But neither Torrit nor Noah were even listening. They were more interested in the fried pork, whether with or without ginger. Tarita wondered whether to take the carcass with her and sell it, despite its size. But in the distance, Lala noticed someone else. It was a girl who looked like Tarita, running around shouting Noah's name. It was the younger sister, Sharita. She pounced on Noah, catching his scent, and he ran away from her again. But the boy patted her on the shoulder because he was already starting to choke. Then Nomad came up and was surprised to note how much she had grown. She greeted him but waved him off, asking him not to remind her about it again. And immediately she hit him so hard that he flew to the side, and she warned him again not to call her by that cute name. She can't stand it. However, she noticed that the grannies looked surprisingly cute, fluffy, and they even flew. Tarita introduced them, Great Wise Lulu and Great Thief Lala. Sharita apologized for being rude, but admitted that she envied them because they were animal squirrels. And as Tarita's daughter, she was not destined to be born a squirrel. She is a bear. She's so big that she helps look after the field. She once reached level 200 and became the strongest among the newcomers, even though she just registered with the guild. This is no joke. Level 200 for a field protector. But considering the rank of the local beasts, the villagers here are all the strongest in the kingdom. Then Sharita asked Noah to do the same thing again, because she had broken hers recently. The nomad asked in surprise if he still sold this garbage to people. But Sharita hugged Noah tightly, saying it wasn't trash. No one but him could have made it. He agreed to make it for her, just for practice. The nomad did not believe that other blacksmiths were not capable of doing what his son was doing, and it was about a fishing rod with infinitely weak attack and speed parameters. The nomad was surprised. Since when have blacksmiths been making fishing rods? They are wooden, usually made of bamboo. Sharita explained that she dreams of catching the Lord of the Waters in the Silent Lake, but ordinary fishing rods break even on small fish. The Silent Lake is located in the Bird City Plain, in the realm of magical creatures. And Noah understood. She wants to catch the Equiosaur. And of all the Equiosaurs, the largest is the Darkdon. The problem is that it is too timid. If you approach it with a high-performance rod, it will not appear at all, and a weak one will break immediately after the bait. After much trial and error, they came to the conclusion that they needed a rod with an infinitely low attack and speed, but one that was extremely strong. So Sharita asked Noah to forge a metal one. This is precisely why materials that reduce the force of the attack are needed. Sharita asked if Noah could create such a weapon, and learned that the necessary material was already in stock. She immediately thanked him. Now she could finally get even with the Dark Star. But Noah remembered showing his first forge to his dad, who said it was complete garbage. Now he doesn't even know if it's worth giving away such a useless thing. Sharita objected. His fishing rod had served her well for a long time. It was a bit short, though. She looked at Nomad. He confirmed her words and was glad that Noah was finally learning blacksmithing. After all, he was really trying to do exactly what she needed. This is the spirit of a true blacksmith. Although Noah is self-taught, with proper training he will surely surpass himself. His skills and physical strength have already increased. In 6 months, he will be able to forge quality products. So Sharita asked him to make the same fishing rod again. Nomad couldn't help but be surprised. But she waved her hands away, saying she asked for it herself. And Noah didn't take any money from them, because they were samples. But the next time their father finally recognizes him as a master, they will become his clients and pay. But it was time to go home, so Noah offered to walk them to the stagecoaches. The stagecoach waiting area in the capital is simply gigantic. It's hard to remember the roads themselves. And then Noah noticed people in bright red clothes. They seemed familiar to him. It turned out to be Esdai, the queen of the fire dragons, who had come to the human city. At first, everyone thought she wanted to destroy the royal capital, but that was complete nonsense. She had no intention of turning the city where Noah lives into ashes. He had been to the ridge a few days ago, but hadn't come to see her, so now she decided to visit herself. Noah didn't want to upset her, but it seems like it ended up being the opposite. Esty herself didn't quite understand what he meant. Noah realized that it was probably not right to ask her to raise his father's level, and apologized for the lack of explanation. But as soon as they finished their work, Grandma Lulu asked her to return, because such a powerful creature in the capital could scare everyone. SD is not just a magical beast. She is a celestial being. There are only 5 of them in the world. Noah began to praise her enthusiastically, and she clearly liked it. And the grandmothers learned for the first time that the queen of fire dragons is a celestial being. It turns out that the rest are dragons of wind, water, earth, and wood. SD only corrected, with earth dragons, the situation is a little different. She has long known of the existence of 5 celestial beings. It is recorded in ancient sources, but it has taken her years to find out who they are. Now this truth will turn the entire magical world upside down. Then Noah turned to her. Do celestial beings have the right to bypass the royal law that prohibits keeping animals not listed? She replied that it was just the opposite. In her case, everything was fine because she was a celestial being. Even they don't know exactly how to relate to celestial beings and whether to consider them magical beasts. No one knew. But Lambda told Limda not to jump to conclusions. She had always considered the queen to be the most powerful of magical beings. The only question was, had the magical beast detection device detected her? Probably so. It's impossible to set up a barrier over the entire radius of the capital, which is why they installed detectors. There are many devices placed around the perimeter that detect at least high-level magical beasts. They were installed by a guy named Jair 10 years ago. That was very foresighted. At that moment, Jair sneezed. Apparently, someone had mentioned him. Suddenly, Noah noticed how everyone around him started looking at them in surprise. He noticed that they stood out too much in this area, so he suggested they go to his house. Everyone agreed because they were going there anyway. He began to consider a way to allow SD to visit the capital without hindrance. And suddenly, he offered to sign a taming contract with her. Everyone was shocked. He already has a tamer license for Fluffy, and with level 5 he can tame 4 more. Sebastian was surprised and asked the lady what she was going to do, because it was really interesting. Because the guy is right now offering her, the beast, to become his subordinate. Noah explained that if the contract ever became unnecessary, she could break it at any time. However, if the tamer was weaker than the beast, the latter would take the initiative. So, while in the capital, SD could make and break the contract on her own. Thanks to this, she will be able to freely move around in human lands. She asked the great sage if the detectors really wouldn't react if she was under contract. She replied that everything would be fine. But Lambo got angry and threw the glove at Noah. Noah picked it up, saying it had fallen, but Lambo said he had dropped it on purpose. He would not allow Her Majesty to be humiliated in this way. He challenged Noah to a duel. If he lost, he would apologize for his rudeness. Limda tried to stop him, but Lamdo didn't listen to her. Because if this human boy despises them, the other dragons will start to despise them too. Sebastian asked the lady what she thought of this fight, but she simply waited with curiosity to see how things would develop. There was indeed some truth in Lambo's words, so she said, "Let him prove his words with deeds. This is how fire dragons behave." In reality, she just wanted to look. And now, already in the forest, they stood opposite each other. Everyone was worried if Noah would survive because even in human form, his opponent was still a dragon. But if he was fighting the queen herself, Noah apologized for making everyone walk. But Lambo didn't care. In a fight, strength decides everything, not place. Because his swords break quickly, Noah asked permission to use 2. Lambo allowed it, saying the result would still be the same. The conditions were simple. If both of Noah's swords broke or he fell, he lost. If he landed at least one blow, he won. Lambo only pulled out the handle of the weapon. Noah was surprised, but he reassured him that everything was fine. Something strange began to emerge from the handle, and he created a fiery sword. SD asked if everyone was ready, and then solemnly announced the start of the duel. Suddenly, Lambo lunged forward, straight at Noah, but he managed to dodge. Lambo praised him. That was exactly what he expected from Noah. This was Noah's first fight with Lambo in human form, so his opponent's movements were completely unpredictable. Even the equipment evaluation skill didn't work. The sword was definitely not ordinary, and its characteristics were invisible. It probably had a special effect. But now Noah doesn't extract resources. All it takes is one hit. So strength and technique aren't the main thing. Speed was everything, and Noah raced forward at breakneck speed. This time, he seized the initiative and already swung to hit Lambo. But Lambo managed to block his shot. It was unbearably hot. And suddenly Noah noticed how Lamdo's blade began to disappear, and Noah's sword simply passed through the opponent's flaming blade. The first half of his sword fell behind Lambo's back. The first blade is broken. The sword blade is just flame without a clear shape. Noah realized that such a sword was a real problem, a very unusual opponent. It seemed unfair, but no. It was a known ability of fire dragons, and Lele wondered what Noah would do. Obviously, a clash of swords will not work. You may have to move, like during the fight with SD, and look for the moment to strike. Lambo guessed Noah's thoughts. If he was relying on speed, he intended to attack first. But that's naive. After all, his flame is not just fire, but the flame of a dragon. And suddenly, a powerful jet of fire burst from the handle. It turns out that he himself decides which zone to burn. Lambo asked, "Will Noah retract his words about Her Majesty?" It was so hot that the entire forest was about to burn to the ground. SD gave the order to Sebastian, and he began to cast a spell. He created a huge ball of water, raised it into the sky, and poured it onto the surrounding fire. It was strange to see a fire dragon using water magic. Sebastian took it upon himself to clean up the aftermath so that the duelists could fight without restrictions. In such a fierce battle, this is no time to be distracted by trifles. They came together in full force. Looking into each other's eyes, Noah saw Lambo swinging for a strike, and he managed to jump out, dodging the stream of fire. When Noah landed, he exhaled, and Lambo just smiled. Noah asked what was funny about that. He replied that although Noah was strong, he was still only a human child, and all his skills were those of a blacksmith. From the very beginning, he was not a worthy opponent for the fire dragons. Her Majesty was just playing with him, so he's alive only by luck. And if Noah didn't understand this, then Lambo will remind you why everyone is afraid of dragons. But Noah realized something. SD and Lambo couldn't continuously attack with flames. There was a reason for that. Maybe it's the breathing, he thought. After the fire attack, Lambo's sword went out. A little, but it took a few seconds for it to flare up again. During this short period of time, Lambo remained defenseless. And immediately after the fiery explosion, Noah was behind him. Lambo anticipated an attack from behind and was ready. Even without a sword, his claws were still superior to any weapon in close combat. But no one knew that breaking the second sword meant defeat for Noah. Lambo parried the blow with his claws, and he was surprised. The sword did not break. It was the same broken blade. When did he manage to pick it up? And then Noah put his sword right to Lamdo's chin. He breathed a sigh of relief. He himself didn't believe he would be able to do it. So Noah asked, "What now? Is it a draw?" But SD objected. It wasn't a draw at all. Lambo recognized Noah's speed, keen eyesight, and deep intuition. For a human, he's a true warrior. But will that be enough against a dragon that's fighting seriously? His sword burst into flame again, a furious jet scorching the air. Humans do not possess the absolute power of destruction that a dragon possesses. And he asked, how could Noah resist this? Sebastian noted that losing his temper was a bad habit, but even Noah wouldn't get out of this unscathed. Then SD asked Noah, by signing a tamer contract, she could infiltrate the capital and take over the castle. Besides, he would give up his power over her. He didn't want to control her from the start. So what would he get in return? Noah replied, "You could have destroyed the capital without a contract, but what's important to me is that you can come to me at any time." Hearing this, SD laughed loudly and sincerely. She understood everything and immediately agreed to become his companion animal. Everyone was stunned. She asked Lambo to lower his sword. The duel was over. He asked why Her Majesty was so concerned about the man and not about him, and he admitted that this was the real reason for the duel. Lambo promised Noah, "One day we'll figure it all out." When it was all over, SD walked up to Noah, touched his forehead, and told him to get ready. A message appeared in Noah's head. A taming request from a high-ranking creature was received. Choice: yes or no. And of course, Noah chose yes. It was as if he had been struck by lightning. He almost fell, but Nomad managed to catch him. Noah was already back to normal, and SD was amazed. He really accepted her. Lulu was even more surprised. Noah's tamer level immediately rose to 100. Until recently, he was only level 5, but thanks to the Queen of the Fire Dragons, his level was forcibly raised. SD confirmed that she was now officially his beast. Noah was confused. What did that mean? She explained, magical beasts are tamed at level 1, spiritual beasts at level 10, and celestial beasts only at level 100. Usually, humans don't even reach level 9, but celestial beasts have a secret technique that allows them to obey whoever they recognize. A person must show them their truth. If they are sincere, their level is equal to that of a celestial beast. Someone asked, "What if the truth is a lie?" SD replied calmly, "In that case, the tamer will be torn apart from the inside." So, to get SD as an ally, Noah needed to be tamed to level 100, but what about Sebastian and the others? They are spiritual animals, so they can follow the same path. They walked up to Noah and held out their hands. Something strange was happening with his level, and they decided to keep up. Lambo didn't even hide his displeasure, but now everyone was officially in the kingdom. Although Noah was worried that Uncle Jair might show up at any moment, he explained to SD, "Uncle is the current king, so please don't throw fireballs at his castle." Fortunately, SD does not approve of barbarism, but if they attack first, that's another matter. Then she snapped her fingers. "Now I can walk around the capital, taste goodies, and go shopping." Actually, she didn't just come to shop. She also came to see Noah, of course. She snapped her fingers again and ordered Sebastian, "Bring it." And at that moment, Sebastian created something from the flame in his palm. It was a small suitcase. It turned out that SD had come for a reason. She wanted to make a request to the divine blacksmith and test his skills. When the suitcase opened, Nomad saw the stone inside and immediately recognized it. Noah had never seen such a sample of ore and asked what it was. He activated the ore identification skill. It was Haihiroa Kane, a light but extremely strong metal, with thermal conductivity, the brilliance of the sun, and cold to the touch. Even Lala and Lulu's grandmothers were amazed. Such metal only occurs in legends. As expected from Noah, he identified it at first glance thanks to his top-level metal detection skill. It is capable of recognizing all metals in the world. SD asked if there were any problems, because she had even prepared the material for the order, and she turned to Nomad, the divine blacksmith. Would he accept her order? Haihiroa Kane is an ancient metal, and he never thought he would see it with his own eyes. For him, it is the ultimate honor. He dropped to one knee before the Queen of Fire Dragons. After all, this metal is only mentioned in myths, and he gladly accepted her challenge. She requested the creation of a weapon worthy of the title of Queen of Fire Dragons. The Nomad decided to clarify. Which one? A short or long sword? A spear, a staff, or a battle axe? But SD replied that she had already announced the conditions, a weapon from Haihiroa Kane that suited her. If necessary, she would provide adamantite, calcum, or even a branch of the world tree. And also, she wanted to personally monitor the entire forging process. And she warned him, let him prepare better for the next meeting. If the result doesn't suit her, everyone knows what happens next. She said, let him prepare for this in advance. Noah assured him, everything will be fine. Dad will create a real masterpiece. Although Noah praises his father so much, is he capable of controlling Haihiroa Kane? After all, this metal is considered living. It chooses for itself whether the blacksmith is worthy of the right to forge it. If not, it will not take on any form. If he doesn't like the shape of the sword, it will gradually change until it returns to its original shape. This stone had once belonged to her mother. It was a luxurious flamberge then. but after her mother's death, it had turned back into stone within 20 years. Apparently, the flamberge didn't suit her. Therefore, SD decided to clarify one more thing so that everyone understands. She doesn't love him. She said it directly. After all, he made Noah suffer and simply received his love. Just because he is a father, she wanted to tear him to pieces. But she was a queen, and restraint was fitting for a queen. So he gives it a chance, but if the stone doesn't change shape, his life will end. Even if the weapon turns out to be good, the time it takes to turn back to stone will reflect the remaining life of the weapon, and once it turns back to stone, it will take the life of the blacksmith. And she also said that she is very merciful. It hurt Noah to hear such words from SD, but Nomad stopped him. Don't interfere, I want it myself. His face lit up again, as it had in the happy days when he and his wife had made a living as blacksmiths. He grabbed SD's hand and thanked her sincerely. This is a memory of his mother, and he asked to give the stone to his father, because Nomad will truly create the best weapon in the world, and he will help him with this. SD expected Noah to start whining, but it didn't matter to him. Now both he and his father are full of inspiration, because they have work to do with this amazing metal ahead of them. In this sense, Noah even surpassed Nomad. Now Nomad felt an incredible joy. Working with High-Heroa Kane meant putting his life on the line, but he didn't object. He even thanked the Dragon Queen. Even if he were reborn 10 times, he would hardly have seen such a stone. The grandmother smiled, as they say, the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. I wonder how much of Omori Noah has left. Lambda called Nomad a weirdo. He said he didn't understand that he was literally playing with his own life. Linda agreed. He was too carried away. But Nomad was determined to start work tomorrow and determine what exactly to forge from this metal. He asked permission to address Her Majesty with a request, and he asked for another identical piece of ore. Suddenly, Lambda pinned Nomad against a tree, grabbing him by the throat. Linda begged her brother to calm down, but Lambda was seething. Did Nomad really want to give up just because of a lack of raw materials? It's humiliating after such joy. But Nomad calmly explained. Just now in the conversation, it was said that one stone is only for a flamberge, and for a weapon worthy of a queen, that's not enough. Sebastian sternly ordered Lambda to let the blacksmith go. This is an agreement between the mistress and the blacksmith. If anyone is to be punished, only she will determine it. Lambda let go. Nomad coughed, but stayed on his feet. SD just sighed. Don't worry. This stone is alive, and if necessary, it will change its shape. By the way, it was once a battle axe. She asked if she needed anything else. The Nomad apologized and asked her for a fang. The furious Lambda had to be restrained, and SD calmly asked, why? The Nomad explained, Dragon fangs significantly enhance the power of weapons, and if this thing is for her, a particle of it must be in the composition. SD was impressed by his courage. She agreed. She reached into her mouth and pulled one of the fangs out of her jaw. In human form, it is smaller than in dragon form, but its magical power is concentrated and stronger. It was the first time Noah had seen the Dragon Queen's fang, but that was enough, and Nomad was sincerely grateful to her. Then SD and her family ascended into the sky. Noah only asked not to be seen by people. Wishing the divine blacksmith good luck, she disappeared into the sky. At home, Noah asked his father what he would do next. Will he combine High-Heroa Kane with another metal? Maybe use obsidian? Or will he take adamantite and also dragon fang and scale as auxiliary materials? But Nomad called him closer. He had something important to say. He wanted to share the secret of metal smelting. The alloy skill is what he scolded Noah for yesterday, but in fact, it is pumped to the maximum. And that's why, even with the limitation of double alloy and addition, he was called the Divine Blacksmith and created legendary weapons. And Noah, even with an alloy of 4 metals, only reached the special class. Weapons are divided into common, master, rare, legendary, and mythical. Special. somewhere between master and rare. Noah thought the problem was his experience and asked, does his father really have a special method? Yes. It takes more than just skill and ability. It takes intuition, and even that doesn't always work. He understands that the demands are too high, but this time, if he makes a mistake, he will no longer live. Therefore, he asked Noah, learn, gain experience, and reach the truth of the alloy. It was like a farewell speech, because SD herself said that this might be his last job. Noah asked if he agreed because he was confident in himself, and his father confessed this was the first time he had seen High Cain. And so, it turns out that Nomad can really die. Noah asked his father why he didn't refuse. He replied that there would be no second chance, and to summon divine metal to battle was an honor. Noah admired High Cain, not noticing how his father knowingly accepted a deadly bet. Nomad could have died from one mistake, and, of course, he wouldn't demand a perfect result from his son. It was enough for him to just try. And he handed everything over to Noah. Without hesitation, Noah accepted these words as a promise. He immediately asked about the secret of the alloy. The nomad recalled how they forged the sickle for Terete. They took obsidian as the base, added meteorite iron, then adamantite, and a titanium admixture for the fourth metal. If you already have the skill of alloying, why not use it? But such an approach is a path to failure. Noah didn't understand it then, but now it's clear. Sometimes it's better to focus on one metal rather than combine several. Monometallic dual alloy is the way of the gods. Meanwhile, Noah stood outside and saw the dragons approaching. SD rising into the air, noticed the determination in his gaze. He called out to everyone. It was time to create the best weapon in the world. Inside, Nomad stood by the furnace, the fire burning, the air becoming unbearably hot. Noah came in and announced that SD and his family were already here, but Nomad didn't hear them. Lambda was indignant that he didn't even meet the customer. Noah explained that his father was in blacksmith mode. He didn't hear anything unnecessary. When the metal was taken out of the furnace, SD could no longer hold back. It began. The forging of High Cain began. Everyone held their breath as they watched the divine blacksmith at work. Noah was surprised to hear about the monometallic alloy. After all, an alloy is usually a mixture of two or more metals. But in this case, you need not only talent, but also cunning, intuition, and a special skill. For Noah, who relies on skill, this could be the perfect path. Even if he were to pass it on, there was no one in the world who had mastered this skill. Other masters had failed, and he himself was considered a heretic. That's why the Blacksmith Guild stopped supplying him with rare metals, despite his fame. Only Nomad could do this. Noah looked at him with admiration, but this time he wanted to try it too. So he asked SD for some more material. When one metal is fused, its amount decreases several times, although ESD reminded that High Cain changes size himself. In ordinary forging, it might multiply on its own. But what will happen if you try a double alloy? No one knows. Now everyone understood that alloying one metal was possible. But then how is a double merger different from a regular one? The Nomad asked Noah what the point of the alloy was. He replied, increased strength. Fusion gives advantages over pure metal. The alloy inherits properties: fire from obsidian, magical sensitivity from mithril, hardness from adamantite. If you combine incompatible metals, you can lose everything. Noah was good at it because he read books to his mother. Typically, an alloy of several metals adds effects, while a single metal multiplies existing ones. If the metal's basic attack is weak, the result will also be meager, but if it is strong, the effect will be devastating. Dual alloys of the same metal are all about attack. Strength and speed depend on the quality of the metal and the skill of the blacksmith. For example, adamantite becomes incredibly strong and protective when alloyed, but the weight of such weapons will be simply colossal. Lulu understood everything and reminded Nomad that Noah had the smelting skill, so he could try again. But Nomad replied that in this case, smelting would be useless. Although this skill was not his, he thanked Noah for his willingness to help, but this time it wouldn't work. And the whole reason is the fang of the Dragon Queen. Remelting returns the metal to its original state, and all added materials disappear, and a human fang will only last for 2 attempts. It would be a shame to lose such material. If it were a fang in her dragon form, it could be forged into dozens of swords. But even with that, the weapon would only be legendary, and they need divine. Legendary class is not enough. The conclusion was one. It was necessary to create a mythical weapon. Everyone was stunned. The grandmothers asked if Nomad was in his right mind, for since the beginning of civilization, no man had forged a mythical weapon. Such creations were attributed only to the god of forging, and Nomad is only mortal. He is threatened by the wrath of the gods. But Nomad reassured Lala and Lulu. If these divine materials don't yield a mythical level, then it's the end. A special double fusion of High Hero Arcane with High Hero Arcane, complete with a special double edition of the Dragon Queen's Fang. And perhaps this will lead to the emergence of a weapon the world has never seen before, a new mythical truth. They were interested. What does special double edition mean? He explained that when a special edition is made, the weapon gains fixed effects and characteristics, regardless of the amount of materials. So leaving the fang for a second try is like throwing it away. Typically, double edition uses 2 different materials, while quadruple edition uses 4. But this is about a special double edition of one material. Noah realized that if his father could make a double alloy from one metal, then he could also make a special edition from one material. He asked if his father could really do that, but Nomad only smiled slyly and didn't answer right away. He simply began to explain where and how to start. Noah thought he had never done it before, but Nomad confirmed that he had, and even successfully. Only once, though. All 3 surrounded him and demanded the truth. The Nomad admitted, yes, he was only doing addition, but I never combined addition and merging at the same time. They were shocked. It was the first time, and such recklessness. After all, even a simple double fusion of High Hero Arcane with a bang and scales could cross the line of the mythical. But for Nomad, can doesn't mean done. This time, he really has to put his heart into everything. With that kind of confidence, you can create a legendary weapon, but a mythical one requires absolute faith. The slightest doubt, and even a legendary one, will be unattainable. Blacksmithing is not a game of luck, only skill and spirit. Even a strong soul cannot forge a perfect sword if it does not take a step forward. He is not yet a real blacksmith, and that is why it is worth risking everything. Noah and the grandmothers looked at him in silence, and he just smiled. Noah understood that his father would give everything to this cause. But even after creating the perfect weapon, if SD didn't like it, High Hero Arcane would return to his original form. The Nomad decided that he would forge a partisan. A partisan is a spear, a long-handled, stabbing weapon. Lala wondered if it would be suitable for the Queen of Fire Dragons, but she was corrected. She had imagined the shape incorrectly. The partisan is 1.8 ms long, of which 60 centimeters is the blade. It was created for chopping up enemies. This idea came when she fought Noah. She is the embodiment of strength. She is not one to fight on equal terms. Her style is to destroy enemies in one fell swoop. She is the Fire Queen of Estelord. 16 by is a great length for her. She is tall and powerful. If you extend the partisan to 2.5, the blade will be 1 meter. And in the middle you need to place a handle for easy holding. The only problem is the number of High Hero Arcane. If you focus on this, there will be no decorations or details. The handle will have to be made of wood. He understood that High Hero Arcane would not approve of the addition of another metal or wood, so he decided that the handle would also be made of it. The entire 2.5 meter long spear had to be forged exclusively from this single stone. The fire in the furnace burned brighter and brighter. The nomad concentrated as much as life itself would allow him. He was only preparing the coals, and the sound of the hammer already filled the air. The real blacksmithing mystery had begun. Perhaps this is Noah's last chance to take on his father's art. The forging has begun, on which Nomad's very life depends. The metal instantly heated up to the depths. He took a hammer and struck the metal. The first blow sounded like a challenge to the sky itself. When he lifted the hammer, he noticed something on the surface of the workpiece. It must be tempered before being pulled out. It cools better than even calcite. And that's to be expected. Haihiroa Kane was a true miracle. He repeated this process dozens of times throughout the day. SD asked what he was doing. Noah explained. His father was dividing the material, one for the blade, the other for the core. After heating, it must be cooled quickly. The carbon part is separated by blows, leaving a soft alloy for the blade. Absurd! It's Hihiroakan. The Dragon Brothers were indignant. But when Nomad examined the metal, he saw that nothing had separated. He put the ingot aside. Noah asked, "Weren't you going to break it?" But Nomad replied, he heard that Hahiro Akane didn't want to split. And indeed, I heard the sound of metal again. Noah thought, if it's living metal, maybe that's why it doesn't want to break. The Nomad pointed to the ingot and said, "Here it is. This is it." Of course, he's alive. And that's why he doesn't want to be broken. Maybe he doesn't even want to enter the fire, Noah thought. Or, like fire dragons, he is indifferent to the heat. SD confirmed it, although she was asked to be more careful. Maybe he even absorbs heat like a salamander. Otherwise, the metal could be crushed and then combined by blows in a fire. Ordinary fusion is the union of different metals. But my father said, the fusion of one metal is the separation of it into parts and reunification, as if they were different substances. If Hihiroa Kane doesn't split, what will Nomad do? Will he surrender and add adamantite? Or will it connect what by definition cannot be connected using a special double merge? After some thought, Nomad took Hihiroa Kane in his arms. Noah asked, is he abandoning special fusion and returning to regular forging? Typically, metal fragments are placed in a furnace, wrapped in wet paper, with ash and straw added. But the father's actions did not at all correspond to the technique of fusion or addition. It seemed he decided to just burn the metal, just like that, out of curiosity. And suddenly Noah saw Haihiroa Kane began to shrink. And indeed, with a successful special fusion, the metal shrinks dramatically. He did it. But Noah didn't understand at all. How? The Nomad looked at him and asked, "Are you ready?" Noah nodded and confidently picked up the hammer. Together with his father, Noah began forging Haihiroa Kane. Together, in the rhythm of fire and metal. SD noticed the fire dancing happily, as if the spirit of the flame itself loved Nomad. Sebastian asked her to look more closely, and then she saw Hihiroa Kane began to grow. It turned out that the metal recognized them. Lambda asked in amazement how this was possible, since they were ordinary people, but SD ordered him to be silent and watch. Even he felt the flame rejoice. The fire was truly beautiful. Until the evening, the two of them did not stop beating Haihiroa Kane, and eventually, the metal became truly gigantic. Nomad announced that this volume was enough. That was all for today. Noah fell to the ground, and the grandmothers ran to him, asking what happened. He shouted that he was terribly hungry. SD just laughed. Noah didn't have time to cook, and no one else knew how to cook. But how can you stay hungry after all that work? He groaned. Lulu asked Lala if she should buy something, but she replied that it was already late. All the shops had long since closed at sunset. SD sighed. It's hard being human. Dragons can go months without eating and not feel hungry. Suddenly there was a knock on the door and a voice said, "Noah, are you home?" It was Terita. She knew that from that day on he would be busy with forging, so she decided to bring food. She made him bacon and wild boar gravy, something he loved so much. Upon seeing the dish, Noah rushed to hug Terita, admitting how much he loved her. Everyone sat down at the table to enjoy bacon and gravy. Meanwhile, Nomad stood next to Haihiroa Kane. The double special fusion was successful, but whether the weapon's form would be preserved is still unknown. This was just the beginning. Nomad lifted Hihiroa cane with one hand. Despite the increase in size, the weight did not change, but the density of the metal felt the same as before. It was extremely hard. The next morning, Noah searched the workshop for any debris that might have been thrown off during the forging process, but found none. What a strange metal, Hihiroa cane. It seems to have a will of its own. It is alive and does not want to be divided. Noah hit Hihiroa cane again with the heavy hammer on the anvil, and gradually a long handle began to appear. Lambda guessed that it would be a spear. Another day of hard work on metal came to an end. Noah's hands had obvious calluses. It was at this moment that Tarita entered with a saucepan in her hands. She brought fresh rye bread and a stew made with milk, fresh milk from their cows and freshly baked bread. SD was surprised. She didn't know that cow's milk could be used for more than just desserts. Tarita invited her to try it. She advised Noah to make porridge out of bread and cheese if he didn't like the dish, but Noah didn't mind. Today, the grandmothers were supposed to prepare dinner and a bath, but Noah felt something. He ran to the kitchen and saw the grandmothers standing among the burnt pots. Noah started arguing. He asked them not to use magic while cooking, but they assured him that they hadn't even tried. They were lucky that their aunt had brought ready-made food. And the bathroom was also in danger. It turns out that even Ms. Lula and Ms. Lala have weaknesses. Tarita smiled and invited everyone to use her bathroom. SD, having heard the conversation, became interested in the human bathroom. Without hesitation, she decided to try it, to immerse herself in this strange tradition. Noah and Nomad waited their turn and noticed how SD was becoming more and more immersed in human culture, and this was only thanks to Noah. Sebastian, standing nearby, noted that Her Majesty usually takes magma baths, so this change was extraordinary. He sat down next to him and offered him tea. Noah took the cup. Then Sebastian asked what Noah thought of Her Majesty. He clarified in what sense. Sebastian meant that the lady was not indifferent to him. She had brought an artifact that had been passed down from generation to generation, Hihiroa Kane, and Noah must be aware of her feelings. Noah asked if it would be okay if they really became a couple. After all, he was only human. Sebastian understood everything, so he decided to tell me more about dragons. First, he asked if Noah had ever met any other dragons. Noah wasn't sure. It was hard to tell the sex of a dragon. In each species of dragon, only one female is capable of laying eggs. Fire, wind, earth, water. Only 4 queens are capable of giving birth to a new generation. It was a first for Noah. He had never heard of such a thing, but it was a secret among dragons. Because if other races find out, they might try to destroy the queens to wipe the dragon race off the face of the world. The nomad remarked that he had heard of the Wind Dragon King, but not the queen. Sebastian praised his knowledge. This is rare. Usually, a king is the husband of a woman who is capable of giving birth. If she does not want to rule herself, 2 generations ago, the fire dragons had a peaceful queen who did not desire power. Her husband became king, and when she lost the ability to give birth, she laid a successor egg and she herself began to age. Noah nodded, then asked why he needed to know that. Sebastian answered simply, that Noah might become Her Majesty's husband. Noah could not believe it. He was a simple man. But Sebastian explained that it was up to the queen to decide. Race didn't matter. Her ability to give birth is parthenogenesis. She herself absorbs the male cells and forms an egg from them. But the next generations of queens will no longer have their father's genes. Even if the man is a different race, a woman or even a dog or cat, it doesn't matter. They jokingly discussed who would be better, a cat or a dog, and they agreed that it would be a dog. But the truth is, without a husband, a queen cannot give birth. Estelord has been on the throne for 100 years, and without a husband, no new fire dragons have been born. 100 years is too long even for a dragon. Noah thought about it. That was indeed a problem. Sebastian agreed and said he respected her decision. But 100 years had passed, and the time for change had come. All the dragons were worried about this. Lambda and Lambda were raised as potential husbands for the queen, but she did not accept them. But then Noah appeared. That's why they treated him with hostility and even wanted to kill him, jealousy. And Noah even got a kick out of it. For the first time, the queen said, "I want him as a husband." And even though he's human, that's unheard of. He, as a person, is ready to convince stubborn elders and take responsibility. Sebastian asked him to at least think about their queen. Suddenly, someone called Noah, and he left. The nomad asked if he would become the husband of the Fire Queen. Noah replied that it was unlikely. After all, he believed that he was only a backup option, and she should have someone else, someone better. But then he saw Este coming out of the bath, and Sebastian put her in a bathrobe. She blushed. Who would have thought that a fiery dragon could blush so much after a simple bath? And Noah thought, 100 years could fly by without you even noticing. He said that he and SD were just friends, but he added in his mind that he didn't want to listen to moralizing from an unemployed father. Este turned to Sebastian, and he remembered that Nomad must have sensed that Hahiroa Kane hadn't woken up yet, but she replied, "Never mind. After all, now they no longer need straw. This will work as a substitute." It's been 4 days since they've been forging Hahiroa Kane. The hammer blows haven't stopped. Nomad encouraged Noah. He's doing well. Everything is going well. Exhausted, red with exertion, Noah was breathing heavily when someone suddenly put an arm around his shoulders. It was SD. She praised him for his courage and diligence. Meanwhile, Nomad was smearing something on Hahiroakan. When SD asked what it was, he replied that it was clay for tempering the blade. His father's special recipe, regular clay mixed with ash and shells, so that the heat wouldn't affect the rest of the metal. All that was left was to wait for it to harden. Noah asked if they would forge it tomorrow, but Nomad objected. The work will be done today. After all, tempering requires precise temperature control, and this is best seen after sunset. We need to wait a little longer until it gets dark. And at that moment, Lala whispered to Lulu, "She is restless. Something is awakening in the deepest cave near the dungeon boss." Lulu admitted she also felt it yesterday, but at first she thought it was an illusion. The feeling came from the depths of the dungeon. Suddenly, Noah felt the earth tremble. Everything around them shook. They could barely stand, Noah shouted, asking what was going on. SD just smiled slyly. Meanwhile, Cheryl was brought another mountain of papers. The reports included a tax return, a committee budget, a grant request, even a letter from a 5-year-old girl. He hoped this was the end of it, but the secretary sternly reminded him that everything had to be signed. Gerald began to beg like a child for a break. But at that very moment, a subordinate ran in with an urgent message. The monitors recorded the unheard-of reaction of the monster approaching the city. Direction is from the north. That meant from the direction of the endless desert. And Gerald immediately remembered Noah. A giant monster resembling a dinosaur appeared in the boundless sands. He appeared right in front of Noah, Lulu, and Lala. Everyone was frozen in horror. Even Tarita came running. It was the great serpent of the rock cave. He was also called the Metal Eater, a monster that lives underground and feeds on rare metals. And every time Hahiroa Kane awakens, his scent draws this monster to the surface. His target is Hahiroa Kane, which belongs to Her Majesty. Lambda remembered. Previous queens had also been attacked by this annoying worm. But now Hahiroa Kane is in the process of being forged. It is impossible to give him away. Noah rushed to warn Nomad, but in his mind, he already had a premonition. Even the capital could suffer. But Lambda assured him not to worry. Her Majesty would sort it out, and the sword would be ready by then. Noah ran to the forge where Nomad and SD were. He warned about a giant monster coming after Hahiroa Kane. Even he himself wouldn't be able to handle such a monster. But Nomad wasn't going to run away. He decided to complete the forging. If the monster is following Hahiroa Kane's trail, escaping will only complicate things. The consequences will be catastrophic. Noah was about to object, but Nomad suddenly put his hand on his head. Nomad placed his hand on Noah's head and gently told him not to worry. Aunts Lulu, Lala, Tarita, and the fire dragons were with them. If needed, they would come to help. But no matter what happens, cataclysm or monster, he will not allow this forging to be interrupted. Esti praised his determination and was even more impressed by his father's fearlessness. She promised, once the forging was complete, she would fully reveal her greatness along with Haihiroa Kane. Lulu, Lala, and Taraita were already heading towards the monster, warming up their muscles. They understood that the main thing was to buy time, although it would have been better to kill the creature right away. Its level was definitely beyond comprehension. Even in old age, your blood boils when you are challenged. All three of them rushed toward the monster at the same time. Lala rushed forward, jumped onto the monster's neck, and quickly reached its head. She struck the neck with a double blow at extreme speed, but the creature's skin proved stronger than steel. Its daggers cracked, but there was no harm. After landing, she retreated back to where Tarita was already approaching the battle. Gathering strength in her fist, she struck the snake's torso. Her hand ached, but the monster finally flinched. Even the blades did no harm. The twin dragons explained that the snake takes on the properties of the metals it feeds on. Its scales are as strong as adamantite and resistant to magic. Humans cannot defeat it. Lala said, "If he's so smart, let him help." But suddenly, the snake began to accumulate magical energy in front of it. The situation was becoming dangerous. Lulu ordered everyone to gather around her. A few seconds later, the creature released a beam. The ground shook. Dust rose. Lulu managed to build a powerful barrier. It held. It's not even a dragon, but it can breathe fire. Lulu decided to answer. Magic circles appeared around the snake, and in a moment, there was an explosion. They all hit at the same time. It looks like he got a little bit of it. Lambda remarked, "Even among humans there are worthy warriors. They do not retreat. He will help them only if things get really bad. This is just a warm-up. Their stirring will not hinder Her Majesty's weapon forging." Inside the forge, work continued. Explosions could be heard outside. SD laughed. "They're not even ashamed." But Noah didn't share the joke. The nomad sat, staring thoughtfully into the flames of the stove. Then he turned to SD. Could she breathe fire in human form? She nodded. Then he asked her to breathe fire into the stove and not to hold back. When she asked why, he explained that he was going to put Haihiroa Kane inside, but the usual heat wouldn't be enough. She warned him that if he lost control even a little, he might accidentally burn it. But Nomad was adamant. "Don't stop until I say so." Esti only hoped the stove would withstand this fire. Finally, Nomad opened the furnace and placed Hihira Kane in the very heart of the fire. SD took a deep breath and began to breathe flame directly into the crucible. Sparks flew everywhere, some even touching Nomad himself, but he only gripped the handle tighter. He kept his eyes on Hihiroa Kane, waiting for the first sign of change. And suddenly he noticed the first changes in the metal. He immediately ordered SD to stop breathing fire. With one sharp movement, he pulled the weapon out of the oven and plunged it into the water. Thick, boiling steam erupted from beneath the surface. When the weapon had completely cooled, he carefully removed it from the water. Usually it needed several firing cycles, but this time it didn't. It was perfect. Realizing this, Nomad knelt down, and holding the sword with concentration, he presented it to Estelorda. She nodded approvingly. He had done everything correctly. Meanwhile, the three who had been fighting the monster were already quite tired, impatiently waiting for the forging to be completed. The magical barrier weakened each time, and Lulu doubted whether she could withstand another blow. The dragons were already ready to intervene. They saw that the limit was near, but Lambda sensed a change. It seemed their exit had been cancelled. Something was going on. The monster charged a new beam, and the three prepared to block it again. But suddenly, Esti stood before them, and with just one swing of her sword, she repelled the attack. She was floating in the air, holding a newborn weapon in her hands. Looking at the soldiers below, she praised them for their courage, but then she continued with that. Everyone was stunned. She repelled the magic beam with one movement, but she is the queen of the fire dragons. And only now did they notice that in her hands was a sword forged from Hihiro cane. At that moment, Nomad and Noah came up. The father was shocked to see the monster, even though Noah had warned him. But everyone was safe. Father, son, grandmother, aunt, all alive. Nomad put everything he had into this weapon, and the result is definitely a masterpiece. This sword is capable of defeating even such a gigantic monster. Lambda said, if the sword turns out to be blunt, then both the blacksmith and the people will die, and Hihiro Kane will become just a red fox again. But Noah confidently replied that everything would be fine, because his father hammered into this forge not only skill, but life itself. Esty looked at the monster with a smile. She could feel Hihiro Kane's delight. If he wants to swallow the weapon, let him try. She will let him. Let him approach boldly. She is waiting. The monster opened its mouth wide and lunged straight at Esty. Everyone held their breath, and Esty just smiled slyly. And in the next moment, she struck a swift and precise blow. The blade left a thin mark on the monster's head, which hung in the air, and a second later, the snake's body split into two equal parts. For he who is born to crawl is incapable of flying. The fire of the sun, one blow, and nothing remains. The power of the sword is incredible. The beauty is even greater. SD gave him a name, Genu or Golden Raven. Then she decided to transform back into her dragon form. The sword lay nearby, as if waiting for her human body. At this moment, against the backdrop of the full moon, Estalord was seen by everyone, from Noah to King Gerald and the townspeople. The weapon changed size to fit the owner. Noah was surprised. This was one of Hihiro Kane's abilities. The sword adjusts itself. After all, the queen was incredibly beautiful, and fire dragons reveal their true power only in their true form. The way the sword changed for her is proof that the weapon turned out to be perfect. Noah was stunned when he learned that this weapon was mythical. Jin Woo was a mythic-ranked spearman. Attack, 20,589. Speed, 20,069. Defense, 60,003. And durability, infinite. He was simply indestructible. It was the first time Noah had seen such crazy specs in a weapon, and it was all made by Nomad. SD confirmed that an ordinary person could do this. She recognized this weapon as her faithful companion, and she blessed Nomad. Now he is officially the royal blacksmith of fire dragons. This was the official recognition of the Dragon Queen, and Nomad received new titles. The Fire Queen's Blessing and the Royal Blacksmith's title. Maximum fire protection, plus a 20% special fusion and enhancement chance, plus 60 levels. It was impressive. Noah was happy that his father had reached level 60. Now he would be able to master the techniques of fusing 3 metals and adding 3 materials. But Nomad didn't look too happy. The title's effect gave him a chance to succeed in mythic crafting. He thought he had discovered a new class. But it turns out that mythical weapons aren't that rare. He wasn't the first. Noah reassured him, this is not the end, but only the beginning. There is still a lot of forging ahead. SD, back in human form, joked that Nomad had turned into a pathetic dad again, and if he bothered Noah, she would nullify his success. But Noah asked her to stop. He was tired after everything. They thought the form of the dragon Esti was too conspicuous. It could be seen even in the capital. A little more and the royal army would be here. But Esti assured her not to worry. As long as she was in a good mood, no one would get hurt. Unless the king decided to act foolishly. They just hoped that Gerald was okay. Esti asked Noah what he would do himself. After all, he came here to find rare ores and bring back his father's passion for blacksmithing. And he succeeded. She smiled, tilting her head slightly. And he understood everything. That was why she had brought the medal to Hihiro Akane too, not out of contempt, but to bring her father back to the anvil. Everything was for his sake. Noah thanked her, sincerely. She pretended not to understand what he was thanking her for. His dream is to forge weapons from unseen metals that have never existed before, and one day he will create something that will make nomads speechless with delight. So he won't stop. He will look for new ores. SD decided to train him even harder, without options. These words sent a chill down Noah's spine, but Nomad stopped her and forbade Noah from going for ore. First, he must master the basics of blacksmithing. After all, gathering materials is the work of adventurers or blacksmith apprentices, not craftsmen. Noah objected. If he is an apprentice, he can both collect and forge, all at once. He will become what no one has ever been before, the blacksmith's strongest apprentice. The nomad was surprised, but the grandmothers just laughed. Well, Noah for sure. SD understood him and called him her most precious friend. To become the strongest, you have to defeat several fire dragons. She promises to be very attentive during training. But Noah shouted that that was not what he meant, and he rushed to run away. With such a sword in her hands, she would definitely kill him. SD ran after him. He is still a long way from the title of the strongest blacksmith's apprentice. Long ago, when chaos reigned, there was neither sky nor earth, only emptiness. From this chaos were born 5 great gods, and although they were perfect, they could not create. Then 2 appeared, man and woman. They complemented each other and therefore could create. They created all that exists. But their first child was a formless, mindless creature. They sent it back into chaos. But again and again, only formless children were born. The male and female deities turned to the 5 elder gods, and after consulting, they decided to become fraternal. Soon the sky, the earth, the sea, and other deities were born among them. Living beings began to appear, and some of the gods were already different from the heavenly ones. After the birth of many deities, the female deity exhausted her life force and died, while the male deity fell into despair and fell asleep. Humans multiplied, grew strong, became arrogant, and began to despise other creatures, almost destroying the world. The gods became angry and mixed humans with animals. Since then, there has been no pure-blooded creature left. It was a legend about the birth of the gods, and about the meaning of the existence of humans and deities, and also about a deity who did not become a deity, the first son of a male and female deity, lost in chaos. A small furry creature was running away from the crowd of adventurers. They shouted that it was Chijira Mogur, and that we should kill him as soon as possible. He gives a lot of experience. He didn't understand when exactly he started wandering, and when they started chasing him. He knows nothing about himself. Both humans and monsters rush at him with delight and excitement as soon as they see him. If it is attacked, it usually runs away. If not, it flies into pieces and then reassembles itself. Why can't he die? Who is he? Chigura Mogura doesn't know the answers. The only thing he knows is that everyone wants to kill him, and each death is as frightening as the first. That's why he's always hiding. He doesn't need food or water, he just doesn't want to be seen. Its speed is perhaps the highest among all monsters, albeit short-lived. Usually he just wanders around. He doesn't rely on anyone, and any unexpected blow could tear him apart. The adventurers continued to search for him. Killing him guaranteed a promotion. One of them even decided in advance to write off the cost of the potion. A week of hunting would pay for itself just from the monster's skin. And suddenly, a sword rose near Chijira. I'll probably have to die again. But suddenly, the wolf grabbed the swordsman by the side, and he screamed in pain. It was a stone wolf. The other adventurers quickly recognized it. They thought he was also hunting Chijira Mogur. A fight broke out. Someone tried to shoot the wolf in the eye, and Chigura tried to escape quietly. But before him stood a whole pack of stone wolves. Monsters of this species are divided into a male and a female. One distracts, the others follow the plan, a coordinated hunt. And suddenly, a touch. The magical girl touched him from behind. She screamed when she saw Chijira right under her feet, and she swung her magic wand to finish him off. She succeeded. She was delighted to kill Chijira Mogur. Her level jumped, and it inspired the others. Even the wolves lost their fear. But in a moment, in another place, Chigura was once again restored from the wreckage. And he had to hide again. The hunt continued. He was very afraid. And suddenly, he saw a boy looking at him. A guy with a sword. He wondered in surprise, "Is this black lump alive?" I took it in my arms and felt the creature tremble with fear. And instead of a sword, the boy reached into his pocket. Wasn't he hungry? The boy took his lunch, onigiri, out of his pocket and handed it to Chigiri Moguri. The food smelled surprisingly pleasant. The guy asked if he wanted to try it. Kijira had never eaten. He only knew that food was something that humans and monsters shoved into themselves. But he dared to take a bite and was stunned by the taste. He seemed very hungry. The guy apologized. It was his only lunch. He wondered what kind of creature it was, soft and frightened. But there was no more food, so he decided to return home. The boy said goodbye and turned to leave. Kijira thought, is he really just leaving? He wondered what that white thing was, why the boy didn't attack, and he suddenly started to worry because there were dangerous monsters ahead. The boy noticed that a small creature was stealthily following him. He smiled. If he's already fed it, he'll have to take it with him. And he picked up the fluffy creature in his arms. "My name is Noah, and I'll call you Black Fluffy." In that moment, his formless, nebulous existence took on meaning. He now had a name. Black Fluffy. Monster, Kijira Mogura. Name, Black Fluffy. Feature, softness. Ability, level up. Favorite food, rice. The only unique monster in the world. Noah put it in his pocket and asked him to behave himself. And then he ran forward at breakneck speed. Fluffy didn't care anymore and fell asleep. Now there is no need to be afraid anymore. For the first time in his life, he felt this strange warmth, and a single tear rolled down his eye. A day has passed since SD brought the heroic Kanya. Noah went out onto the porch and stretched out in the sun. Father was already on his feet. Today, it seemed, the real blacksmithing training would finally begin. But that didn't last long. Gerald arrived. Lulu and Lala came with him. They all gathered in the hall, and Noah brought them glasses of drinks. Although the SD caused a stir yesterday, the castle quickly calmed down when everyone learned that Noah was friends with the queen of the fire dragons. Her appearance was a good sign, but Nomad still wondered why the guests had arrived so early. Then someone asked if Nomad had any enemies, because the man who was captured by the fire dragon and the yesterday was now in the castle. Noah immediately remembered. It was after the SD's victory over the huge snake. Then he tried to escape from the SD, which was chasing him. But in vain. She grabbed him by the scruff of the neck. She had caught him, and now he had to train with her. The boy begged to start tomorrow. At that moment, someone called out SD. It was Sebastian. He was holding a man and said he had caught him, as the lady had ordered. But it wasn't easy, she added, because this man had been spying on them ever since his father started forging again. So she had assigned Ramdad to watch him. He did everything perfectly, but he lost sight of him in the castle. However, it was clear. He lives very far away. And if Jerry finds out that the spy was in the castle, he will definitely have a heart attack. Noah agreed. With horns and wings like that, you can't even dream of being a spy. They're too conspicuous. But as soon as she put her hand to the horns, they simply shrank before her eyes. Along with the horns, the wings and tail also shrank. No one had any idea she could do that. True, it only worked temporarily, but Sebastian could walk around in this form for at least the whole day. But Ramdad was eliminated not because of his appearance, but because the opponent turned out to be smarter. Lambda noted that the guy was no weaker than him. He managed to escape thanks to his stealth skills. But Esti noticed. Dragons were not used to dealing with such opponents. Everyone was wondering who he was, and only then did they notice that he had no tail. Sebastian took off his hood and said he was an owl. Probably someone had clipped his wings at some point. It's rare to see a bird-type beastman these days, but Sebastian had plenty of experience, having once been a dragon scout and fulfilling the whims of humans. The grandmothers were alarmed. Could a dragon live among people? Perhaps even now. But SD reassured them that Sebastian was no ordinary dragon, and those who could hide their wings and look like humans were extremely rare. Sebastian met people, many of whom had stealth skills, especially birds and predators. Among them, owls were the most useful: night vision, camouflage, silence. Noah asked where he was from. Maybe he was one of Uncle Jerez's people. But my grandmother objected. If I worked for him, I wouldn't be spying. It's the opposite. A king may have secret servants, but watching over his own household is something else entirely. He could be hired by debtors, local aristocrats, or even guild blacksmiths. Since he remains silent, they take him to the castle, saying that this is the explanation for the appearance of the Dragon Queen. The owl that Lala and Lulu caught was not one of their spies, the guards confirmed. Gerald asked if there were any versions of who he might have worked for. Nomad suggested that perhaps someone was still angry with him for marrying Omora, or because of his strange behavior. Noah immediately agreed. His father always acts strangely. This only confirmed Nomad's words. It's no wonder someone wants to remove him. But that's not the point. His enemy is someone in power, and certainly not from this room. Of those, he only knows Gerald. And even then, no, it's definitely not him. Noah asked, "What's this owl doing here?" He is a beast man, but he is silent. That is the only thing known for sure. But one thing is clear, he is a trained spy. Only a few races possess the skill of stealth, and all of them are under state control. Most belong to two main families. They are the protectors of the royal court, living in the shadows and carrying out state orders. The country has registration, guilds, and population records. Although this system does not work everywhere, ID cards allow tracking of up to 95% of the population. A child inherits the race of one of its parents, so it is known where carriers of secrecy are born. The place of training is only two government families, and this owl is not one of them. Moreover, it is not trained. Conclusion: it is a wandering owl. By wanderers, we mean those who have moved and have not registered, otherwise they will not be able to work. So there are three conclusions. First, there is a shelter for two families, where complete anonymity is maintained. Second, there are unregistered carriers of stealth skills in the world. Third, the village or its residents who hired the spy are interested in the nomad. But with the advent of the Dragon Queen, all this could radically change. Gerald couldn't think of anyone who would have taken an interest in his affairs after he started drinking, or who would have benefited from watching how Nomad spent his money. If there really are underground organizations that accept such orders, it's a big problem. But for now, it's just him. Another topic is Omura's equipment, which, according to the false messenger, she took with her. He conducted his own investigation but found no trace of its sale over the past 8 years. So the stuff wasn't sold. Gerald suspects the equipment is still in the possession of those who appropriated it, or people like this owl are working for them. But who needed Omura's equipment? She's a renowned paladin, and her story is perfect for a play. Her sword and spear are legendary, and the equipment itself is a national treasure. Collectors may break the law for it. In the worst case, it will be sold off in parts, but if everything is still intact, it can be returned in full. And again about the main thing. Perhaps the theft was not aimed at the equipment, but was simply revenge on Nomad. He is disliked in the Blacksmiths Guild, but there are craftsmen who simply don't care. But if this is really revenge, it's much more serious. They forged the royal decree. At least so far, there have been no such cases of forgery. The thief used his skills only to deceive in order to take possession of Omura's equipment. The fact that the decree was skillfully forged may indicate that the thief had frequent contact with similar documents, so aristocrats cannot be excluded. Lala asked, "Does the population registry allow for complete tracking of people with secrecy? If even one person pretends to be dead, he can secretly teach others." Gerald asked if she had any ideas. Suddenly there was a knock on the door. 3 boys stood outside the door, asking if this was the home of the Dragon King's blacksmith. Gerald realized they were customers, so he decided to leave through the back door and come back later. And Noah and Nomad let them work. Noah went to the door and asked if they wanted to order a gun, but they simply replied, "Open up." When he opened it, there were three boys standing in front of him, looking at him in surprise. One asked if it was really Nomad. The other one stopped him immediately. He wasn't kidding. And the third one asked where Nomad was now. And it was at this moment that Nomad left the house. The three boys immediately fell to their knees, and they all unanimously declared that they wanted to become his disciples. This was unexpected. Their names were Nem, Jem, and Ram. Yesterday, they left the forge and heard the Dragon King's decree. It turned out that the king's blacksmith was not a legend, but a reality, and they became interested. They told the master that they wanted to go to him, and he replied that Nomad's blacksmithing was dangerous, and that only self-destruction awaited them. Everyone in the blacksmith's guild decided to ignore the edict, saying that dragon weapons could not be created by a simple blacksmith. Yesterday, everyone was worried, but today they are watching in silence. They were upset and asked Nomad again to take them in. They discussed everything and made a final decision. These three were real talkers, but Nomad noticed that their teacher was right. He asked his name, Montmavrisk. The Nomad knew him. He made a double alloy and made him try it. True, he was Montmavrisk's brother, but he was right. Few people can repeat Nomad's work or even try. And he is a lone blacksmith without support or customers. Apprentices won't change anything. Noah heard it for the first time, so Nomad decided to change the subject and tell us how to become a good blacksmith. He advised me to find a job in a large forge with regular customers, gain experience, hone my skills, and gain recognition as a master. Later, I would open my own forge. And with Brother Mon, it would be even easier. They agreed that it was good, but they still had doubts. Then, Nomad decided to show them the skills of the Dragon King's blacksmith. If they decided they could do it again, he would accept. If not, they would return to Brother Mon. But in fact, Nomad was pleased that they stood up for him. The three boys immediately beamed when they heard that they would see the Dragon King's blacksmith skills. Noah remembered that the last time he was in this forge, he broke all his fingers. But Nomad only asked what he was talking about and said that Noah was also coming with them. At the forge, he immediately began asking for aura chalk, griffin feathers, and other rare materials. Every ingredient was in its place, everything laid out with precision. It was already starting to get dark outside. The guys were shocked. Double alloy, double granting of properties on one material, and the weapon was of legendary class with an attack rating of over 9,000. And all this in half a day. They didn't even have time to notice how the ore turned into metal and how the dual properties were given. Perhaps the Nomad rank makes it easier to work with alloys and properties. By the way, this time he almost didn't hurt his fingers. For 8 years he did nothing but what he forged in his imagination. Suddenly there was a knock on the door. Noah thought it was another customer, but on the doorstep was Limda, who had come alone. Seeing the new sword, he asked permission to look. The Nomad asked what he was doing here, but even Noah didn't know. Limda took the sword and began to examine the blade carefully. He noticed that it was different from His Majesty's dagger. The workmanship was extremely delicate. Then, he looked at Nomad, and he said that he also wanted to become his student. He was calmly sipping tea, while his grandmother sat opposite him. Everyone wondered what the fire dragon was doing in the house, and thought they had just dreamed it, but Limda simply wished them good morning. Lulu asked if Noah had done something again, but this time he was up to no good. Limda brought them breakfast sandwiches with a cutlet, apparently beef. They were surprisingly delicious. But suddenly Noah said it was a dragon sandwich. The old women turned pale. Who would serve dragon meat to a dragon himself? But it turned out to be Limda's tail. He explained that he had given the tail in honor of becoming Nomad's apprentice. The grandmothers froze in shock. Limda became a student? But when he saw Nomad, something inside him lit up. He felt the joy of the flame, opening up limitless possibilities. The golden raven blade, created from Nomad's fire, was a true miracle, and he too wants to become the embodiment of that fire. Like Noah, he was engulfed in flames and asked if the queen knew about it. Of course, he asked Her Majesty for permission and told her how much he wanted to become a dragon smith. She listened to him and agreed. She said she would wait 100 or 200 years until he became what she wanted him to be. She was even willing to send a few dragons with him. Noah was shocked. Dragons seem to live much longer than humans. If this is the case, then in 100 years Nomad will definitely die. So, Limda won't be able to study for 100 years. Nomad is already in his 40s, so he might live another half a century. Limda was upset. In some 50 years, Nomad's great skills might disappear forever. But it doesn't have to be like this. He doesn't want to accept the thought of Nomad's death and decides to wake him up early to start his training. Limda ran into Nomad's room, and Lulu asked if there were any other guests yesterday besides Limda. Noah remembered that the three of them had fled as soon as they learned that Limda was a fire dragon. Meanwhile, Limda was already waking Nomad. He barely woke up and grumbled about why he had to get up so early. The dragon replied that it was time to start learning blacksmithing. Nomad complained that after yesterday's event, his body ached from head to toe. Then Limda began to cast spells. He cast a spell on Nomad, and he lit up, not understanding what had happened to him. When the magic wore off, the pain was completely gone. Limda asked if he could start now. Lulu was amazed to see that the fire dragon had healing magic. Fire and water are opposites. If a fire dragon, famous for its strength, also heals, this speaks of its uniqueness. And indeed, apart from Limda, no fire dragon can heal. But Limda himself was not very strong. It was just that a water dragon was once born in his family. Lulu was shocked. How did a fire dragon have a water ancestor? Noah realized that this was a rare subspecies of dragon, and he asked Lulu not to ask questions. It's a secret. She asked how Noah knew about the dragon's secrets. He replied that he was a friend of SD who had told him everything. Lulu was a little confused. She had been outplayed. The big and wise Lulu lost to the boy. Lala suddenly felt that they had been brought a letter. Everyone went outside together. And at that moment, a bundle fell from the sky, which Lala caught in the air. It was the first time Noah had seen mail delivered like this. Lala hasn't been on an adventure for a long time, but recently she's become interested in research, so out of boredom she opened a courier service. This pigeon had been her pet since the egg. It happened to fly right over Limda's head. Limda noticed that the bird was flying high, about a kilometer. There is a special book in the capital that detects demons, but not those flying above 200 meters. Therefore, it is better to deliver letters this way. Limda asked if it was worth telling him about it. Lala replied that it was like a natural disaster. You can detect it, but you can't stop it. Whether you know it or not makes no difference. As his girlfriend said, people are truly amazing creatures. Lala opened the letter and told Lulu that they urgently needed to return to the Soy Kingdom. Lily has disappeared, so there's no need to delay. They decided to take care of the kingdom. They have a lot of guests now, so they asked Noah not to be upset about their departure. Meanwhile, Limda woke Nomad again, addressing him, Master. The Nomad was surprised. Why call him a master? But Limda said that since he was a student, it was quite natural. And then they saw SD, Lambda, and Sebastian in front of them. SD noticed that they were not busy with anything. She came to pay for the golden crow, and also to congratulate Limda, who had become a disciple. Previously, he always stood in the shadows, but now for the first time he acts on his own accord. It will be difficult, but she asked Nomad to support him. Lambda was never a strong fighter, but when he challenged his brother to a duel, he won. He didn't support the idea of his brother becoming a human disciple, but if that was truly his dream, he wouldn't stand in the way. As soon as he won, he immediately ran away and said that Limda could heal him. Limda apologized and immediately began to heal. SD turned to Sebastian. He immediately understood everything, pulled out the case, and opened it. They added a little more money to cover Limda's training. If it's not enough, they'll prepare more. The nomad asked in surprise if they were really sure about that. She just said to take it while they give it to her. Nomad thanked her and accepted the case. It turned out to be surprisingly heavy, so Nomad let Noah try to lift it. Noah picked up the case and immediately felt its weight. It was real wealth. The Nomad said that all this money was now his, even though he had earned it himself. From now on, Noah will work with materials he obtains himself. This is an advance. However, Noah had no idea how he could spend so much. If so, take the case to the warehouse. After all, even gold can be used to forge weapons. Iste expected this from a descendant of a blacksmith family. There were many possibilities, and he was already thinking about what he would create from such alloys. But Nomad reminded him that first he should learn blacksmithing, and asked when he planned to go for the ore. Noah is angry. Everything has gone wrong because of his studies. He has to complete the Adventurers Guild quest every month, otherwise he will lose his license. Maybe Limda can help? But Nomad only asked what he was talking about, and reminded him that he still hadn't finished with the warehouse, and also to bring a few batches of Tessel thorns. Supplies will run out quickly, and then the manticore needles and griffin feathers will have to be turned into the guild. But Nomad can't just order the materials. If the guild asks for something that can only be obtained by forging, then we must act. He looked at Noah with intensity. Limda was nervous, but he understood that as a future blacksmith, he could not back down. He was ready. He said they could take as many claws and scales as they needed, but they explained to him that they meant something completely different. Limda sighed with relief. They also told him that claws and scales were excellent forging materials, and giving them to the guild is a waste of resources, they said with sly smiles. Limda even burst into tears from their pressure. Soon he was standing next to Nomad in the forge. The Nomad put on a blacksmith's apron and said to put the jokes aside. They would start with a hammer and tools. I asked if he had any spare skill points for alloying and engraving. Limda said he did. Unlike the other fire dragons, he didn't waste them on fighting. Then Limda said he was ready, and Nomad solemnly said, "It's time to begin." Limda asked to teach him everything he knew, but at that moment he was a little worried about Noah, who was training with SD in the meantime. They were standing somewhere on a rocky ridge. Noah and SD met in a sword fight. She easily threw him far away. Noah fell and noticed that his sword was broken. Then Sebastian handed him a spare sword. SD asked what was wrong with him. Training had just begun. But Noah was ready to show what he was capable of. In the end, everyone chose their own path. Limda worked in the forge with Nomad, while Noah trained and fought alongside Este. Noah was working in the field and helping Rita, who asked him to plant a row near where she was standing. He quickly began planting seedlings in the water, row by row. And suddenly, I heard praise behind me. It was Merrill. He asked if Noah had really gotten all that done in the morning and brought lunch. Noah replied that he would finish everything by lunchtime. Since Noah began helping them, the area of rice fields has increased significantly. Merrill looked at Black Furry and handed him a lump of rice. Merrill had to write down the sun, because they had even gone a little overboard with the field expansion, and asked how long it would take to go around all the areas. It all started after neighbor Roy left the farm, and such an amount of land cannot simply be left empty. She relies too much on Noah. Not even 1/100th of what was planted has been harvested yet. She remembered that Noah was the fastest of them all, and asked Merrill if he had been so disappointed at losing to little Noah that he had given up the rice business altogether. His help was truly invaluable, and he had recently started fencing training. They asked him how he was doing. Noah remembered how it all began. He trained with Estea on Dragonback, and he broke his sword again when he crossed blades with her. This was almost the 100th broken sword. He had made many swords before he began his training with Nomad, and now he couldn't believe that they were all so fragile. He asked what Este's fan was made of. She replied that it was a masterpiece, created by the greatest master of his generation. His blunt swords were no match for it. She suddenly rushed to attack, but Noah managed to dodge, falling onto his back. Thanks to the reaction, he planted his hand on the ground and kicked the fan out of her hands. He realized this was his chance and swung for the shot, but SD reacted instantly and stopped the blow with just her hand. As it turned out, her hand was covered in tough scales, and another sword cracked. Even her hands hid many secrets. But it was only defense. He couldn't do any damage. The blow was too weak. But his movements were becoming clearer, and she asked if it was more effective to train with the same opponent. This was the first time he had managed to hit her. The endless desert and dragonspine are full of great demons, so he is used to relying on strength and sword. But against people, it is better to use a variety of techniques: punches, throws, grabbing the handle, or clothing. There are many options. She asked why he froze. Noah admitted that he wasn't expecting a real workout. He thought she was just playing with him. She took it as a challenge and decided to train even more seriously. And he, if he wants to become the strongest, also wants to fight her for real. She retrieved the golden raven, or rather, summoned it from the fire that appeared in the air, and she asked if he was ready, because accidental death is quite real. It was all in the style of the queen, but Noah really did almost die. Meryl asked how he could be good at everything at his age. Noah replied, "If you don't become the best, you'll just get killed." There was no training today. He was supposed to go to the Adventurers Guild instead. If Noah's license expires, he will not be able to continue training. So they decided to finish planting the rice as soon as possible. And Noah got back to work at lightning speed while Meryl watched from the sidelines. Eventually, he came to the Adventurers Guild and chose a task for himself, but he never found anything interesting there. And suddenly he saw Sue looking at him intently. She was looking for him. She had a request for him. Noah immediately stated that he did not take any materials with him. But Sue wasn't talking about that. Someone had been stalking her lately, and she asked if he had a dagger for self-defense. She didn't have money for new weapons. She still felt safe in the guild, but on the way home it was a completely different matter. Noah said he would see what he could do and suggested she check out their store in case there was something she liked. But Sue wanted a weapon with a high attack rate, like for real combat. Noah wondered why she wouldn't ask her guildmates for the sword, at least Emerton, but Sue didn't want to embarrass him. After all, Emerton is a B-rank adventurer. Looking back, Sue leaned towards Noah and whispered who exactly was chasing her. "He was a hero," Noah snorted. Sue immediately asked him to be quiet. A hero from the Dentcorn Kingdom, level 54, has passed the harsh test of the Beast Forest and is now very popular among adventurers. He has recently officially registered with the guild, and it seems that by chance he fell in love with her. Noah clarified, "Is the Beast Forest a place for level 10 adventurers?" "Yes, many hunt there near the entrance, but the hero has reached its deepest parts. There he came across a door to a fairy forest. This forest is considered a treasure trove of rare materials, such as mithril. The entrance was lost, but the guild knew he was somewhere deep in the forest. So now no one in the guild can stand against the hero." But Noah was only interested in one thing: mithril. All Sue wanted to say was that no one could help her. Only the hero reached the fairy forest, and the guild is now afraid to contradict him. Frankly, Sue doesn't like him at all. She promised to check in with Noah later and asked him to think about what weapon would suit her, preferably with payment in installments. Noah wondered, what if there was someone else who could lead the adventurers to the entrance to the forest, and then the hero would no longer have to worry about anything? But the Forest of Beasts is a dangerous place. The level must be from 4 to 50, and finding that entrance is almost impossible. But Noah only thought about the mithril. Sue understood. Noah wanted to go there, just for the mithril. They agreed to go together when Sue had the day off. Noah agreed. So he returned home. He had to forge and sell something. On the way, I couldn't get the thought out of my head that I would soon receive the mithril. But someone was already waiting for him at home, and it seemed like a long time ago. It was Julius, the same hero. Noah froze in shock at his appearance. There is a legend on this continent about a demon lord, and to confront him, every 20 years, heroes are born, chosen by the god of war himself. But even historically, the existence of the demon lord has not yet been proven. The previous hero was Uncle Jer, so Noah thought they would all be similar. But this one looked completely different, too feminine. Julius asked if Noah was surprised that a hero had appeared in such a place. Noah admitted that he was more surprised not by this, but by the rumors that had been circulating recently. The hero understood that there were many different rumors about him. Noah directly asked if he was a man or a woman, to which Julius replied that he could be considered either way because he was a philanthropist and did not discriminate against anyone. But he admitted that he doesn't feel very well about women with big breasts. But he even likes Noah. Although Noah is too young for his tastes, it's better to talk in 3 years. Compared to Esty, Sue does have modest curves, so it's no wonder she reacted with disgust to such statements. After all, he personally told her that she had small breasts. Noah still asked why the hero had come here. Julius had heard of a strange blacksmith, and like a hero, he sought out a master capable of creating a worthy weapon. He was recognized as a hero 5 years ago. Level 54, conquered the beast forest. Noah had heard all this before, but he supported him. It was then that his sword from the Soy Kingdom almost fell apart. After the forest, it broke altogether. So the hero refused the opportunity to enter the fairy forest. It seems that the sword could not withstand his battles, and now he is looking for a reliable weapon. He was advised to contact a blacksmith from the capital's guild, but no master dared to take on the task. Then the former blacksmith Montbrisk told him about a place where only one person works, a dedicated blacksmith named Nomad. It looks like he really said that. Noah was surprised. Don't all the blacksmiths in the capital hate Nomad? But perhaps Mon would recognize his skill. He asked what kind of sword Julius needed. He replied that it had high attack, defense, speed, and endurance. More precisely, attack 5,000, defense 3,000, speed 3,000, stamina 3,000 or more, and weapon class, only rare. Even Noah fell silent for a moment. It's no wonder everyone refused such an order, especially since it's almost impossible. After all, speed and durability are opposites. Thick swords are strong but slow, thin ones are fast but break. An experienced blacksmith can extract one parameter, for example, attack to 8,000, but then sacrifice everything else. But it is those who combine contradictory parameters who create rare weapons. This requires not only skills, but also inspiration, conditions, and true passion. Julius insisted that a sword for a hero should be just like that. You're lucky if at least if the hundreds of forges has something like this. And usually such things aren't in stock. The hero's behavior may have been strange, but you shouldn't judge him. He simply doesn't understand blacksmithing. Then Noah pointed to the samples and said that some of them almost met his requirements. He asked if there was anything he liked. A one-handed sword, a two-handed one. The dagger had weak stats, and the battle axe was slow. Julius was amazed. He had a knack for evaluating the arsenal. He could spot lies right away. He looked at the rare greatsword. Attack 9,000, speed 3,500, defense 4,000, stamina 3,000, 8,000. And all of this was the pure truth. He wondered why such a forge was hidden in the wilderness, and he decided to buy a two-handed sword similar to his old one. Many people asked the blacksmiths for a discount for heroes, but rare weapons usually cost at least 500 silver coins. Even with a discount, the price is rarely less. However, Julius offered 200 silver coins, a bargain that was hard to ignore. Noah took into account that the hero was not only visiting them for the first time, but also behaved quite politely, so he suggested that he come back if he liked the sword. Julius admitted that it was a rare stroke of luck to find the perfect sword right here, and praised Noah for his knowledge. He promised to come back someday. 2 full days have passed. Sue and Emerton were standing at the entrance to the kingdom, and, noticing Noah, they waved to him cheerfully. He apologized for being late and noticed that Sue looked different, all because instead of a uniform, she wore something more comfortable for movement. She was shocked to learn that the hero had visited Noah. If Julius buys a new sword, he can go to the fairy forest, and maybe they will cross paths again on the way. But Noah said he needed at least 3 days to prepare, so there was almost no chance of meeting. Then he asked why Emerton was going with them. He explained that Sue and Noah were going to the forest of beasts, and although Noah was not weak, it was still too early for him to compete with the local monsters. He couldn't ignore it. So it's not just Noah who's worried about her. When Noah mentioned someone who could lead him to the fairy forest, Sue immediately thought of Emerton. It would be more logical for a B-level adventurer to do this, not some unknown guy. It was a half-day walk to the place, and Noah offered to carry Sue in his arms. But what about Emerton? He replied that he would ride his beast Zoo, and, in principle, 2 more people could fit in it. He asked if Noah could really carry him. Noah clarified, "Is Zoo a name?" Emerton explained that naming a demonic beast is no joke, so he's not giving it a name yet. Noah didn't know this, even though he was a tamer himself. After all, by giving a name to a beast, you transfer part of your power to it and lose 1 level. Emerton was level 45, and after that, it would be level 44. But Noah didn't care. He just called his animal Black Furry. Zoo with 2 passengers will be slower. If Noah carries Sue, he can go ahead. Emerton just smiled. Does Noah really think he can outrun Zoo, who is faster than horses? He jumped on Zoo and promised to wait there, and if they were late, he would return. And indeed, he set off. After that, Noah suddenly picked Sue up in his arms, completely confusing her. And indeed, she is considerably heavier than him, but Noah doesn't seem to pay any attention to it. They set off on their journey. Emerton was soon joined by Zoo, and the whole company set off for the forest of beasts. Already on the way, Noah asked her what was going on. Sue admitted that he was too fast, and in general, it was the first time she had been carried in her arms like some kind of princess. Finally, they reached the village before the entrance to the forest. It was quite lively here, despite the proximity to the wilderness area, all because the forest of beasts is located near the capital. The village turned into a small town where people and nature lived side by side. There was everything you needed: armor shops, guild branches, and as Noah noted, there were also a lot of stalls. One of them was selling dumplings with soy sauce, the aroma of which was simply divine. Noah always wanted to eat in such places and offered to buy something, even though the prices were quite steep. Since Emerton hadn't arrived yet, Sue offered to buy something for him and have a snack while they waited. That was her way of saying thank you, but Noah replied that he didn't need thanks. This moment was enough for him, because he didn't have enough money for delicacies. Looking at Noah, Sue suddenly felt that she wanted to protect him at all costs. Finally, Emerton appeared and immediately exploded. "What the hell is going on, and where do you get such speed from?" Noah replied with a smile that Emerton was late, although in reality he himself was too fast. But with that kind of acceleration, if he crashed into the monster, it would definitely fly 10 meters away. Since they had already decided to enter the beast forest, Emerton decided to leave Zoo here, even though he would be worried about him. They would find plenty of materials and meat in the forest, and Zoo could carry it all. But loaded with prey, Zoo would be a target that Emerton might not be able to protect. He had raised him since he was a baby. Losing the beast like that would be unbearable. It was a trait worthy of respect, to care more about the safety of one's companion than about profit. Noah wondered if Emerton would be able to keep up without his pet. He replied that he was used to the tricks of the trails of the forest of beasts, so he wouldn't be far behind. Noah realized that this trip would be fun, but in a moment the whole group was running at full speed. They were being chased by monsters. Emerton couldn't understand what was happening. They were followed by red boars, level 10, green wolves, level 9, and the fearsome palefaces, level 12. Everyone fled without looking back. A real pack of demons had descended on them. Monsters tire quickly, so if you strain yourself, you can escape. They have already broken away from the unit, but the rest have not yet fallen behind. Then Emerton asked, maybe it would be easier to fight. Level is not the main thing here. They have more stamina than their enemies. If we keep running like this, we won't have any strength left, he noted. Noah slowed down and warned Sue. Emerton also stopped. There was no point in running endlessly, and he decided he wouldn't run away anymore. Fighting a crowd of enemies is a waste of time and energy. Emerton asked in surprise how a guy like Noah could be a B-level adventurer. And with these words, he swung his sword. His blow felled several trees at once, which fell directly onto the path. So he blocked the path for the monsters, and they could no longer catch up with them. Finally, it was possible to move on to a calm step. But sounds from the other side made them wary again. Enemies had appeared from there. Time passed, and now they were just walking, having fought off the pursuit. Emerton suggested a break, but Noah replied that they were almost at the checkpoint. That's where he wanted to get to before the fairy tale forest. This place is before the very depths of the forest of beasts. It will be safe there. That is where they will make their stop. Emerton asked where exactly they are now. He has been to this forest many times, but this is the first time he has seen this place. And then suddenly, a huge stone giant appeared behind them. The giant struck with a huge hand that resembled a boulder. It was a golem. They were unlucky enough to stumble upon it just now. The situation was dangerous, and Noah asked Sue if she was hurt. She said she was okay, even though it was really scary. The golem completely blocked their path. There was no other way out. We had to act. There was no turning back. Emerton wanted to say something, but Noah had already moved decisively forward. He assumed that if you hit the golem's joints, it would fall apart. And with one precise swing of his sword, he cut off his hand. Noah was surprised. He thought it would be harder because he didn't even put in all his effort. But it was only an illusion of victory. The fragments of stones rose into the air again. The golem has begun to regenerate. It's just a pile of rocks, and until you destroy the core, it won't stop. Usually the core is in the body, but golems are not strong but rather annoying, so most people just bypass them. Sue suggested that it was worth looking for the core itself. As a rabbit beast man, she had excellent hearing. She could even hear breathing. And just then, she caught a light breath from the bushes nearby. Noah unfolded the branches and found a tiny creature. It must have been the core, or it's just incredibly cute. Hitting him seemed wrong. Sue gently addressed him. They just want to pass. Could he please remove the golem? And she offered him a piece of compote to appease him. He immediately nodded, mesmerized by the aroma. As soon as he tasted it, it became clear that he was delighted. And the golem crumbled. Fortunately, the baby understood human language. Who would have thought that Sue's ears would be so useful? Another bonus of her profession as an administrator. They continued along the path, where a giant root stretched ahead. It seemed like a stop. It was very quiet here. Noah thought the place was perfect for a picnic. They got out some rice balls, but they noticed that Emerton had frozen, as if numb. He said, "This is the dwelling of a forest hermit." But Sue wasn't at all embarrassed by it. She did not believe there was any danger here. Emerton had urged them to run, but she did not understand why there was such alarm. Then he explained, "This is the territory of the Lord of the Forest of Beasts himself. Outside, it is harmless until you cross its border." He looked at Noah. "Grab Sue, and let's run away immediately." But Noah didn't want to leave everything like that. He suggested they go together without running away. But suddenly, the roots behind them stirred, and it began to rise, preparing for awakening. They had spotted him. Emerton shouted for them to run away as quickly as possible, but Noah suddenly shouted and addressed the Lord of the Forest by name. This startled Sue and Emerton, and the voice answered, old but authoritative. He asked the children, "Why did you come?" A real old dragon appeared before them, majestic and gray. He turned to Noah. "Why are you here, little one? What are you doing in my home?" Noah bowed low and apologized, saying that he just wanted to rest for a while and didn't want to disturb anyone. The dragon inhaled and didn't smell blood. This meant that the boy hadn't killed anyone in the forest. Therefore, shedding blood in response would be unjustified. Noah asked Sue and Emerton to hand him the backpack, and smiling, he said that everything would be okay. He asked me to move away. The dragon warned that he would fight in the dragon style, but Noah replied that he also had it. The creature jerked its tail, and Sue and Emerton froze in alarm. But Noah had time. He jumped aside and avoided the blow. The old dragon praised him for his speed. Not every human could do that. In response, Noah leapt forward, striking his sword into the gap between the scales. The scales turned out to be extremely hard. Even the blade could not pass between the cracks. And he couldn't pull the sword back out. It was stuck. This dragon's skin was many times stronger than Estes'. The dragon simply slammed its tail on the ground and shook the sword out like a piece of trash. This is exactly how the Earth Dragon behaves, proud of its legendary armor. He called Noah an interesting opponent, but still declared his victory. But Noah didn't even think about giving up. He still had 2 swords left. Although the speed sword was lost, he pulled out another one that specialized in capture. Sue screamed for him to run away, but Noah said firmly, "Don't move." Emerton agreed to retreat further, but advised Noah not to take unnecessary risks either. In response, Noah only asked him, "Take care of the girl." But the dragon was already looming over him, its tail drooping. The warrior lost his focus, and it was a mistake. Sue and Emerton held their breath. Noah was about to be crushed. But the boy didn't panic. On the contrary, he gripped the hilt of his sword tighter and pointed it straight up. With one precise movement, he cut the dragon's tail in half. The tip of the tail was torn off and thrown aside. Everyone, the dragon, Sue, and Emerton, froze in shock. He made himself bait and used the dragon's power against himself. The old man was amazed. His eyes shone with admiration. Later, the meat was already being roasted over the fire. When it was ready, Noah was the first to taste it, and he admitted with surprise that it was delicious. Then he turned to Emerton, who was standing aside. "Would you like a piece?" But he wasn't looking at the food. He couldn't believe his eyes. The dragon turned into an old man. He was surprised to note that his tail had not been cut off for hundreds of years. Emerton, confused, asked, "Why is this old man sitting with them by the fire? Who is he anyway? And also, why doesn't anyone notice that Grandpa is eating his own tail?" Noah calmly replied, "It's delicious. But yes, the question is interesting." The old man suddenly remembered that he hadn't even asked the warrior's name. When Noah introduced himself, the grandfather nodded approvingly. "A good name." Then the boy rummaged in his backpack and took out an alcoholic beverage. The old man immediately recognized the aroma. It was dragon's tear, a drink that evoked nostalgia. It was a sacred liquid for dragons, both anciently and today. And before leaving, SD, a little dragon, was given to her by Noah. The old man had not expected such a touching gesture, even from her. He asked in surprise, "Do you know her?" Noah nodded. "Yes, they are friends, and she is no longer little." Now everything was clear. It was she who taught him the dragon style. Emerton didn't even know where to start, so he decided it would be better to ask what dragon style was. Noah answered simply, "It's when instead of greeting, a fight immediately ensues. If the dragon recognizes you, you can become friends. And the best way to gain respect is to cut off its tail, because the tail belongs to the winner. It can be fried or boiled, a matter of taste. And yet, until its tail grows back, the dragon must do whatever the winner asks. It's a kind of duel, like in humans." Emerton couldn't believe his ears, so he asked again, and Grandpa just nodded, confirming every word. Then Emerton suggested, "Maybe let Grandpa go with them? If he's around, no monster will dare to attack." And what can I say? Grandpa probably knows the way out of the forest anyway. But Noah categorically refused. "You can't do that." And he asked, "Does Emerton know why no one has ever avenged his grandfather?" Because he doesn't attack himself, he's just protecting his home. His territory is his world, and as long as it's not violated, he doesn't do any harm. If you take him from his native land without a tail, they will immediately declare a hunt for him. Emerton immediately apologized for his ignorance and admitted that the ability to transform into a human is a sign of superior power. Also, like the Earth Dragon, it will be able to quickly regenerate its tail. They were lucky enough that their grandfather spoke to them. That was a gift in itself. Noah asked permission to take the remains of the tail because he needed the scales. Grandpa didn't object and asked if Noah was really a blacksmith. He confirmed it, although he admitted that he was still learning. He came to the forest of spirits for Mithril. The old man understood everything immediately and even assumed that he would definitely like the perfume. But he warned, the spirits like to tease travelers, so you should be careful, and they might leave the tail here for now. It would be hard to carry. Noah thanked him because he also had Sue to carry on his back. Emerton looked at this girl and asked what was wrong with her. She sat there as if she had been taken out of reality. Emerton called her to her senses. Sue muttered that it must all be a dream. The dragon was supposed to crush Noah, and now she and Grandpa were eating his delicious tail, and she was supposed to go to the guild. Why hasn't she woken up yet? It seems that it was too strong a blow to the psyche. Finally, she came to her senses and asked what she was doing here. She didn't have to go with them. Noah agreed and asked if she would stay and wait for them here. But when she saw Grandpa licking his lips with saliva, even though he said he wouldn't eat it because it was important to Noah, Sue suddenly changed her mind. She suddenly felt very happy. No, staying was too boring. After that, they went deep into the forest. And Grandpa suddenly remembered. He forgot to tell me about the spirit watch, although I'm sure the guy will handle it himself. Meanwhile, they went deeper and deeper into the forest, searching for the entrance to the forest of spirits. But Noah had never seen anything like it. It was amazing. Even the demons were not visible, although the sounds around hinted at their presence. Emerton noted that the entrance might not be in the shape of a door. Noah suggested that perhaps they were already in the spirit forest. After all, his grandfather had said that it would be obvious. A change in the landscape, a change in the trees. When Noah suddenly exclaimed, Emerton thought he had found something important, but he simply saw a tasty-looking plant. They were poor, so they knew what to eat and what not to eat. Even dandelions, parsley, and coltsfoot grew here. Noah asked, "What kind of summer is this, right? Why is spring greenery growing here?" Noah guessed that the seasons were intertwined here. Otherwise, where would spring plants come from in the summer? They hadn't had time to sort it out yet when Sue heard a rustling sound behind her. It sounded like the growl of a sick dog, hoarse and threatening. A woman appeared between the trees. Noah wanted to call out to her, but Emerton abruptly covered his mouth and told him to look closely. The woman had pointed ears, and her dress turned into a pack of angry dogs. They could kill in an instant. Has Scylla ever attacked travelers? She doesn't come first, but if you step closer, she attacks with fierce force. One adventurer barely survives but runs away and she disappears. Then he said he had looked death in the face. Now Emerton had seen it himself. Sue suggested that she could guard the egg. But it looks like she's just protecting something, Emerton confirmed. And Noah understood everything. She guards the teleport to the forest of spirits, a magic circle, like in dungeons. Demons often travel through such portals. It is convenient and not uncommon. Usually they are hidden, but for the first time he sees a portal in the center of the place. This is unusual. Emerton had dealt with circles like that, but they led between floors, and there's nothing like it here. Noah decided that the spirit forest was a special place, not accessible to everyone, and he wasn't even at its edge yet. One day, he stepped on such a circle and found himself in the sea next to a sea serpent. So if they defeat Scylla, they will be able to enter. But Noah was against it. It wasn't a dungeon. He hadn't killed the guards and didn't know how it worked here. Maybe next time there would be a new one. Perhaps even after defeating Scylla, another guard will appear. Emerton asked if Noah killed the guards for the sake of teleportation. He replied that he simply dodged attacks, ran, and jumped into the circle, and it worked. Emerton couldn't believe it. How was this even possible? But the argument ended. The enemy before them was real. It was Scylla. Noah asked if they thought she was sad. Her gaze was not angry, but rather sorrowful. They never thought about what demons felt. But here it was, the entrance to the forest of spirits. To pass through, they would have to defeat it. Sue was about to attack, but Noah felt a connection between her and this forest. The hero said otherwise, but will he really be able to defeat her? Everyone considered him a failure. He wasn't even considered an option. But you'll have to try. Yes, he defeated the dragon, but only because he knew how. Strength wasn't the point. Emerton called the dragon a lizard. Noah realized that this could be a deadly insult. After all, he had no fighting skills. His technique was to escape. That was all he knew. Noah asked Emerton to wait while he and Sue set off for the spirit forest. They would probably be trusted more with her than with him. But Sue asked, "Can I not go?" Noah then noted, she would be left here alone. Who knows when the demons would return? She couldn't sit and wait. She agreed to go, and Emerton wasn't going to drag her around. Noah took Sue on his back and told Emerton to keep an eye out. If anything happened, he was to follow. They set off at once, and Noah charged forward, ignoring Sue, who wasn't ready for this yet. But it was too late to stop. Scylla noticed them immediately. She turned to face them, as if she had been waiting for them. Noah carried Sue on his back, and they flew straight at her. As soon as he landed, the dogs in Scylla's dress rushed at them. They attacked, but Noah managed to dodge their predatory jaws. The eyes, the noses, the claws. These creatures looked too real. He wondered what was wrong with them. But Scylla stood there with her eyes closed the whole time. I guess that's what she was talking about when she mentioned dogs with colds. Suddenly, another dog's head lunged from the side. Sue had time to warn her. Noah was not confused and jumped up. But the head, as if it had a rubber neck, reached out after him, rising into the air. They didn't expect them to stretch so much, but Noah still managed to dodge, landing with his foot on its snout. Emerton, looking from afar, watched all this with anxiety. Noah asked Sue if she was hurt. She was unharmed, but scared to the bone and wanted to go home immediately. Suddenly, someone shouted, "Scylla!" It was Emerton. He was trying to distract her. All heads turned to him. Noah didn't understand why he did it, but Emerton said, "Don't worry, I know how to run." He added with a smile that this is the phrase said by someone who has already come to terms with death. Then Noah held Sue tighter and stretched his legs to the limit, and rushed at breakneck speed straight towards Emerton and Scylla. He grabbed Emerton under the arms as he went. Landing on a tree, he froze for a moment, then jumped forward again. He flew past Scylla, who had already opened her eyes and was looking straight at him. Ahead, a teleportation circle glowed. Scylla rushed after it, but she was only a few centimeters short. Noah had already stepped onto the portal, and in that instant, they were gone. When Noah opened his eyes, the world around him had changed beyond recognition. Somewhere in the air, a voice rang out. "The child has come here." Someone was nearby. You could feel it. Giant trees rose before them, not like ordinary ones. It was clearly the spirit forest. Emerton asked Noah not to take such risks again. Sue finally came too. Noah asked if she was okay. She suddenly smiled. It turned out that this was her hometown. Noah didn't understand, but the girl was full of nostalgia. He didn't see anything special in this forest. He paid more attention to the strange plants. Sue pointed to a giant mushroom, calling it a maple. She had played under it as a child and hidden her secret hiding places. Noah couldn't understand why the mushroom was a maple for her. Suddenly, Emerton exclaimed, there was a puppy standing in front of him, the same one he once picked up and took to his mother.